My eldest thinks for a moment and then lifts his eyes and says the man probably has plans of his own. That is what I think too, Wani says, and says that what the seller wants is almost certainly not as simple as silver. In a couple of days, he intends to make the trip to Yuan County himself. Myungyeon rolls his eyes and says his second brother should take him along. Do you not have to go back to the martial arts hall? Wani asks. He says he is a second-class martial artist already and could have graduated long ago. That the ones who stay on are mostly there because they have nowhere better to go, and this family is hardly short of a bowl of rice for him. My eldest asks about Lee Ji. Myungyeon says Lee Ji feels he can temper himself better at the hall and plans to work for the Seo family once he has made first class. That is very good, my eldest says. Lee Ji has decent talent and could reach first class inside 3 or 4 years if he gives himself to the martial Dao entirely, which will help the family more. Right, Wani says. Where is Dad? It has taken him until now to notice he has not seen me since he got home. Seolhui laughs and says that only now does second brother remember Dad, and that she really does feel sorry for Dad. He protests that he was busy caring about his good nephew and forgot, and asks again. Myungseon says I am living in the bamboo house by Byeokon Pond. Doing what? Wani asks, surprised. Seclusion, Myungseon says, and then, because he almost never adds anything, adds that Dad said not to disturb him unless it matters. Wani rubs his chin with a light in his eye and says that speaking of it, Dad also cultivates the minor dragon elephant technique and asks where he must be by now. The old man only started at almost 26, he says, and it has been 12 or 13 years, so he should be a second-class martial artist. What second-class martial artist? He is already breaking into the innate realm. My eldest keeps his face straight and scolds him with a smile, asking why he is asking so many questions and whether he is planning to spar with Dad. Wani says he would not dare, and that the moment my face drops he shivers all over. It comes out with such a cheeky grin that Baekjung and everybody else fall about. Shiver, my foot, my wife says, and points out that of all of them he was the one who clung to his father most as a child. That when a big rooster knocked him down he cried his eyes out. Then she goes on with a few more of his childhood humiliations, and the room is somewhere between laughing and weeping again. Mother, Wani says, I would like to keep some face too, and asks her to stop, and she says fine, fine. She will not bring it up again. 2 days later, Wani takes Myungyeon and Daenu and 2 second-class martial artist guards to Yuan County. It is only a 2-hour carriage ride from Sheongang, but the streets are far more disordered, and through the flying dust there is the occasional drunk sleeping soundly against a dirt wall. Wani tosses a few copper coins to a child on a corner and learns that the seller is staying at the Baekyang Inn. The front of the place is mottled and a faded wine banner hangs under the eaves and snaps in the wind. The 4 of them sit idle in the inn's tea room for most of a day, until dusk, when a burly bearded man finally comes back with the setting sun behind him. He wears a dark cloak with a ring-headed saber at his waist, whose brass guard has rusted, and the soles of his boots are caked with dark red mud. He asks whether they are the ones seeking the innate dragon elephant art and leads them up to a second-floor room. The furnishings are plain, with nothing on the wall but an unfinished painting of a fierce tiger coming down a mountain, the brushwork strong. Indeed, Wani says, and explains that his family came by the minor dragon elephant technique by accident, and that his older brother has cultivated it to Hucheon Peak, a kick away from innate. They have been searching hard for what comes after it. The bearded man raises his eyebrows and is silent a moment, and then asks what price they are willing to offer. Wani asks first whether what he holds is the original or a handwritten copy. What if it is the original, the man says, and his tone drops cold, his knuckles beginning to tap out a rhythm on the wooden table. What if it is a copy? Wani stands, pushes open the carved wooden window, looks down at the crowd moving in the street, and says calmly that an original is precious, and usually carries some particular meaning for its owner. They will not press for it, and a handwritten copy will do. What I have in my hands is the original, the bearded man says. The original, Wani says. Did you come by it accidentally, or are you one of the scattered disciples of the dragon elephant sect from back then? The man's pupils shrink and his voice takes on a chill, and he asks what that has to do with him. Of course it does, Wani says. The guest arrives all at once, and he says that if he is not mistaken, the man was a member of the dragon elephant sect, that the reason he will not sell even for 50,000 ounces is almost certainly that he intends to re-establish the sect. Then he advises him to put that thought out. 12 years is not so long, he says, and who knows whether the sect's old enemies still remember the name. Once he raises his head, and somebody with an interest in it reports him, there will be another disaster. Are you so certain, the man says. Wani turns from the window and smiles and says his intuition has always been very accurate. And if I am, the man says, what will you do about it? My family is only here for a handwritten copy, Wani says. The bearded man thinks briefly and asks what price the Seo family is willing to pay, which brings it back around to where they started. but Wani has already worked out from that exchange what the man actually wants. Help you establish a dragon elephant martial arts hall, he says, and pass the legacy of the dragon elephant sect down through it. The bearded man's heart moves visibly, surprise coming into his face, and something like being touched coming into his eyes. Of course, a martial arts hall on its own cannot possibly sustain itself, Wani says, and it will have to stand on its own feet. How? The man asks, and by asking it, he has stepped into Wani's rhythm without noticing. The ease with which he reads and handles people leaves Myunghyun and Daenu staring. This is their first meeting with the man. He is guarded to the last inch, and any number of people have gone home beaten from that same room. As expected of my second brother, Myunghyun thinks to himself, pleased. Talent really is hard to make up for, Daenu thinks, and sighs inwardly, because in these past months working at Wani's side he has learned a great deal. His father, Jin Aogu, has been made the manager of a fruit shop in the county town. Wani smiles gently and says, the answer cannot be given in a few words, that it will take a great deal of manpower and material and money, that it needs the approval of the head of his family. So if the gentleman is willing, he says, why not come across to the Seo family and stay a few days and discuss it properly? The bearded man knows well enough that opening a hall is not a small thing, and after thinking it over, he asks which Seo family. The Seo family of Chunggang County, Wani says. Daenu has good tact and states their identities at once, that this is the second young master of his Seo family, Seo Myung-won, and this is the third young master, Seo Myung-hyun. Second young master Seo, the bearded man says, and third young master Seo, and cups his fists and gives his name as Guo-pyeon. Your eyes are very sharp, second young master, he says, seeing through me like that, so I will not lie to you either. The legacy of the Dragon Elephant sect is the ambition of my life. He agrees to travel to the Seo family and says that if suitable conditions are offered, it is not impossible he hands the original text over. With that settled and the hour late, they stay the night at the Baekhyang Inn and only ride back to Dongseo village. The next day, the road home runs over bluestone slabs, with rice seedling fields opening out on both sides like green carpets, layer on layer of them moving in the wind and going on without end. Watching children chase egrets along the ridges between the fields, Guil-pyeong finds himself thinking that scenery this peaceful is a rare thing. Once Guil-pyeong is settled in, Wani makes a special trip out to the bamboo house at Byeokhan Pond. So you mean to use this to open the Seo family into the martial arts hall business, I say, and grow usable talent for the family while you were at it. As expected of father, he says, seeing through my scheme at a glance. I smile faintly and tell him that in that case he had better keep a firm grip on the line between what the man is seeking and what we are offering. He says he knows what to do, then adds that he also intends to push the winery and the restaurants and the clothing shops and the fruit shops out into other counties. That is no small matter and it touches everything, I tell him. The most important question is whether there are loyal men available for it. He can scout or raise suitable people first, and launching a few years from now will not be too late. Cheonggang County is our base, and matters more than any of it. And if this place is unstable, then none of the rest is worth discussing. Then I find myself opening up a little and go on. The commercial foundation of the Seo family is food and clothing and shelter and transport, and it can be widened now. Carpenters' shops, blacksmiths' shops, pharmacies, anything that helps the family develop can go on the agenda. We can also set up a Seo family school and let the children of servants and guards learn to read and write for nothing. That loyalty to this house has grown in them from the beginning. He nods, and I can see his estimate of his father climbing again. If father ran it personally, he says, the family's wealth would multiply several times over. Human effort has limits, I tell him laughing. How could your father handle every part of it alone? Stop trying to flatter me and just let me hand you an idea now and then. He says he understands. Lastly, I say, he tells me to speak, that he is listening attentively to my teachings. If there is somebody you like, I tell him, bring her home to be looked at sooner rather than later. Your eldest brother is married with a child coming and it is your turn next. My mouth curls when I say that if he does not hurry, I reckon his mother will write him a matchmaking book herself. He should not blame his father then for failing to speak up for him. Your father is still open-minded about it, I say, and I hope he finds a woman who loves him as he loves her and spends this life with her. He goes red and awkward. He always knew a day would come when he was pushed toward marriage. He did not expect it to arrive in the middle of a discussion about the family's 100-year plan, and it takes him completely off guard. Understood, father, he says. I will do my best, and then he flees Byeokhan Pond like a man escaping. I go back to the breathing method of the minor dragon elephant technique, and to feeling out the power of heaven and earth around my body. The reason I am here at all is that Byeokhan Pond has always struck me as peculiar, and I suspect the power of heaven and earth gathers thicker in this place than elsewhere. My eldest cultivated here, and what happened to him confirmed the guess. Back at the residence, Wani passes on everything I said, and he and his brother talk it through at length, and put together detailed plans. Most of the family's affairs have gradually moved into the two of them, and I have been stepping back out of it. In the Seo family hall, behind the red sandalwood screen, Gu Il-pyong looks at the painting of a cold river and a solitary fisherman hanging on the wall. His fingertips tap the armrest of the chair without his noticing. The beams and pillars are all painted in vermilion lacquer. The bracket sets are carved with tangled lotus, and the bronze bells at the eave corners bring faint strings and flutes in on the wind. He has been in the house over a day now and has a preliminary sense of it. The courtyard is classical and imposing, and covers something over 16 acres, with low-key steady colors used throughout. And in Cheonggang County, this is unquestionably a formidable aristocratic house. The servants and maids and guards are all well-trained, gentle with people, and none of them says a word more than needed. He even met a crimson gold-eyed white tiger pacing through a moon gate and nearly struck at it with an open palm. Having seen how deep the heritage runs here, he now believes 7 parts in 10 of what he was told about the hall and the legacy. Then Seo Myung-wi comes out from the back hall with a jade buckle at his waist making a crisp sound, and sits down directly in the main seat. Wani follows him in and takes the primary seat on the lower left. Gu Il-pyong sizes him up, and thinks privately that the head of this family has an unusual bearing and appearance, and is far too young for the chair. Eldest brother Wani says, "This is Gu Il-pyong, the successor of the Dragon Elephant sect." My eldest looks at him smiling and nodding in acknowledgement, and Gu Il-pyong returns the salute. "This is my eldest brother, Seo Myung-wi, the acting head of the Seo family," Wani says. Gu Il-pyong does not care why the head of the family is absent, since Seo Myung-wi sitting there means the man can decide everything. My eldest asks brother Gu where his strength stands, and is told it is the late stage of innit. Wani is jolted slightly and shows none of it. His face is calm as water, and says only that this is more than enough to hold the fort at a martial arts hall. That otherwise things would be troublesome. How so? Gu Il-pyong asks, frowning. At present in Cheonggang County, the Black Wind Hall and the Black Tiger Hall and the Chanryong Martial Arts Hall stand in a three-way standoff with the occasional clash, Wani says. If a new hall suddenly appears, it will inevitably be suppressed. Touching other people's interests nearly always ends that way. Gu Il-pyong nods and finds it sensible. So the Seo family cooperating with the Dragon Elephant sect is a risk we are taking, Wani says, and lays out the terms. His family will promote the hall, recruit disciples, and supply the money and the food it needs for 3 to 5 years. In return, Gu Il-pyong must hand over the Dragon Elephant sect martial arts, the martial skills, the secret medicinal cuisine recipes, and whatever else he knows for the Seo family to copy a share of. Gu Il-pyong starts weighing it. Building and running a hall is enormously complicated, and doing it alone would take him a dozen years or more to reach any scale. He is already in his 40s and wants to keep spending his time on the martial road in the hope of breaking through to Grandmaster, and he cannot do both. As for the arts and the skills and the recipes, precious as they are dead objects. If they are not handed down, then 100 years from now he will be dead and unable to take them with him. The legacy of the Dragon Elephant sect is the great wish of his life, so everything the Seo family has proposed sits inside the range he can accept. Very well, he says after a moment. Then let us go through the fine detail, Wani says, and proposes splitting the Dragon Elephant Martial Arts Hall into an inner sect and an outer sect. The inner sect teaches authentic Dragon Elephant martial arts with strict recruitment. Every disciple chosen and vetted by Hall Master Gu personally. The successors of the hall will be selected from among them with no interference from the Seo family. After 5 years, the source of the medicinal cuisine the inner sect needs will be the Hall Master's own problem to solve. The outer sect is managed by the Seo family, which supplies both the recruitment and the martial arts, and the Hall Master instructs the outer disciples once a month. As for the profits of the whole hall, the Seo family and the Hall Master split them 7-3. Gu Il-pyong goes quiet again and works through what he has just been handed. By that arrangement, the inner sect is genuinely the legacy of the Dragon Elephant sect, while the outer sect is in practice the private property of the Seo family. It seems to him the Seo family has wanted into the martial arts hall business for a long time and was only short of the right man to hold the fort. A hall is complicated business and will not show results inside 10 or 20 years. And the Seo family's investment will not be small either, and he only has to run his own inner sect, with the two houses kept distinct, which leaves him a great deal of time to put into martial arts. I agree, he says. Then I wish our two houses a pleasant cooperation, Wani says. From the day the Seo family chooses the site and starts building the Dragon Elephant Martial Arts Hall, Gu Il-pyong lives in the side room of the western courtyard of the residence. Every morning he unrolls paper on the desk by the window and sets down the martial arts essentials and the secret medicinal cuisine formulas. One item at a time. The old locust tree in the courtyard goes from sparse to dense while he works. Half a month passes in what feels like no time at all. Then he packs the 2 manuals, the minor Dragon Elephant technique and the innate Dragon Elephant art. With them go 7 or 8 martial skill manuals. Among them the 7 absolute sword and the wind-treading step, and the mad dragon fist and the divine wind palm. 4 medicinal cuisine formulas into a red sandalwood box, and hands the box to Seo Myamwi. Thank you for the trouble, Hallmaster Gu, my son says. It was a transaction both sides wanted, the man answers. They exchange a look that says the rest of it, and my eldest carries the box straight to the ancestral hall and puts everything away safely. He goes through each manual roughly, and his attention is on the 4 medicinal cuisine formulas. 3 of them apply to martial artists below the innate realm, and only 1 records innate medicinal cuisine, the kind that can assist an innate martial artist in his cultivation. He picks a few of the martial skills that suit him and works on them in his spare hours, and once he has a slight mastery of them, he invites Gu Ilpyeong to spar. The sun goes down in the west and the whole world takes on a gilded look, and the bluestone bricks of the practice field still hold the day's warmth. My son curls his fingers into a fist and looks at Gu Ilpyeong. Before the wind off the fist is even released, it has already spun the fallen leaves on the ground into a circle. Gu Ilpyeong steps out with the 7-star step, his left palm drawing an arc as though embracing the moon, while his right palm slams toward the chest carrying a sound of wind and thunder. My son neither dodges nor gives ground, and blocks across with his left arm like a bar of iron. There is a muffled sound. Gu Ilpyeong finds his palm gone numb, and has to step back half a pace to settle himself. His pupils narrow, and he thinks in astonishment that strength that fierce no longer resembles the acquired realm at all. Instead of retreating, my son advances, drifting away like willow catkin, and by the time his toes touch down again, he has come around to the other man's flank. He pushes his right fist out level, and before the fist arrives, the air around it trembles faintly. Gu Ilpyeong hurriedly uses the blocking stance out of the mad dragon fist, and feels an overwhelming force come surging over it. The whole of him is shaken, his blood and chi churning, and the web between his thumb and finger throbbing. He had not used his innate true ki, and he never expected to come off worse without it. Eldest young master, he says, you really are hiding what you have. You saw through it, Hallmaster, my son says with a faint smile, having known perfectly well before the exchange that it could not be hidden from an innate martial artist. Exchanges with innate martial artists are rare, so he had not minded. Not yet 20, and already at the innate realm, Gu Ilpyeong says, and lets out a long breath with memories moving behind his eyes. In the heyday of the Dragon Elephant sect, it was only possible to raise 2 or 3 innate youths under 20 in a decade or 2. Men like that could often step into the Grandmaster realm by 35 or 36, and had hopes of reaching Grandmaster perfection before 60. He himself only reached the late stage of innate at 40, and breaking through to Grandmaster in this lifetime would already be doing well, unless Grandmaster Medicinal Cuisine assisted him. Not even the Dragon Elephant sect ever possessed anything that precious. If it had, those innate youths under 20 would have had a 7 or 8 in 10 chance of Grandmaster perfection. That assumed they did not die or take a crippling injury or fall into a lingering illness. It is merely luck, my son says. There is no such thing as luck on the martial road, Gu Ilpyeong tells him. Even with resources behind a man, if the talent is not there, it is difficult to achieve anything large. The innate realm is a massive threshold, and the beginning of a martial artist rising above the common and stepping past the mortal, the point where he can stand against immortal cultivators. Of course, not everyone is given the chance at it. Even with chi induction pills brought down from the commandery city, there are always blockheads who eat 10 or 20 of them and remain exactly where they were. Let us end the sparring here, eldest young master, Gu Ilpyeong says, and tells him to ask freely if he runs into any doubt while cultivating the innate dragon elephant art. My son thanks him, then mentions that he has a younger brother and a younger sister who also cultivate the minor dragon elephant technique, and wonders whether the hall master could give them some pointers. I am willing to take a look, Gu Ilpyeong says. There is no need to trouble yourself, my son says, and tells a servant to go and call his 4th sister and 5th brother over. The servant bows and goes. A short while later, Myeong-suk rides into the courtyard on the white tiger with Myeong-seon walking beside her, and asks what her eldest brother called them for. Father is away, he tells them, and he is afraid the 2 of them will slack off, so he has invited a renowned master to guide them and they had better seize the chance. 4th sister is the one who slacks off, Myeong-seon says, lifting his small chin, and certainly not him. This is my 4th sister Myeong-suk, my eldest says, smiling, and my 5th brother Myeong-seon. Gu Ilpyeong looks them both over, and thinks that they are exactly what a noble family's young miss and young master should be. They are small, and there is already something extraordinary showing in them. First run me the 12 forms of the minor dragon elephant technique 3 times through, he says. Myeong-suk gets down off the tiger's back obediently and pats it, and the animal walks itself over to a corner and lies down. Gu Ilpyeong is astonished by that. To have an exotic white tiger tamed to this degree, and apparently able to follow a child's words, Brother and sister take their positions a dozen paces apart and begin together. With every form they run, Gu-il-pyong recites the essence behind it aloud. The infant dragon wakes its spine and lifts its head to drink the purple chi while its tail hangs down to hold the 8 directions. The elephant's trunk coils water and rolls 3,000 miles of the heavenly river, while the chi sinks to the dantian and turns into thunder. The fire dragon wags its tail to sweep away filth, while the feet tread the fire position and refine true flame. At the end, the communion of dragon and elephant, the dragon rising and the elephant descending to fix heaven and earth, while a single thread runs through the crown and the soul. He nods and keeps nodding. From the way they move it is obvious both of them have put in real work, bitter daily practice for several years at the least, and the fist wind whistles. To generate that much force, they must have reached the level of a third-rate martial artist. What agile and ingenious moves, he says. To have kung fu like that at such a tender age, the Seo family clearly goes to great pains over its young. A faint smile sits on my eldest son's mouth, and he says nothing. The hall is not finished yet, Gu-il-pyong says, and since he is eating and sleeping at the residence for nothing, he ought to be guiding the young generation. In that case, I will have to trouble the hall master, my son says, and nods slightly. Eldest brother, Myung-shuk says, it has not been easy to get a few comfortable days. She runs over to him with her almond eyes curved into crescents, plainly about to plead. He lowers his gaze to her, the hem of his black robe stirring in the draft moving through the hall. When he puts a stern face on, the weight of it is such that even the white tiger tucks its tail and walks away. When his brows draw together now, my daughter swallows every coaxing word she had loaded and ready. Compared to the rest of this family, she is willful, but she can read a room and knows what may and may not be done at a given moment. My eldest is the acting head of the family while I am gone, so his word is command, and everyone in the house obeys it. When there is nobody watching, she can throw whatever tantrum she likes, but with outsiders present, she must not undercut him or lower the standing of the family head. Fourth sister Myung-seon says, do not imagine that because father is not keeping tabs on you, it is time to take it easy. Stinky little brother, she says, and tells him that next time he had better not take the pastries she brings. The two of them bicker constantly, and my eldest has long since stopped noticing. Gu-il-pyong watches all of this in silence, and only speaks after a while. The breathing method of the minor dragon elephant technique is the key point, he says. Only when the 12 forms are run together with the dragon and elephant breathing can they be taken to their limit. That is also the crucial thing for sensing the power of heaven and earth and breaking into the innate realm. Keep practicing now, but coordinate with the breath, he tells them. And since the family has the medicinal cuisine formulas he provided, combining the two will speed the opening of the acupoints. How fast? Myung-shuk says, instantly interested, light practically coming out of her eyes. Gu-il-pyong smiles faintly at the mischievous little girl in front of him, and says that first-class martial artists at 17 or 18 is no problem at all. If her talent is good and she is willing to work, then reaching Hushan Peak before 20 is no problem either. If it is really that fast, she says, would she not be able to catch up with her eldest brother's rate of breakthrough? Little girl, he says, how could ordinary medicinal cuisine compare to a secret medicinal cuisine researched across centuries by my dragon elephant sect? Fine then, she says, I will practice. He stands to one side with his hands behind his back and watches the pair of them run the breathing method while throwing punches in coordination with the 12 forms. It is very like doing two things at once. Anyone without exceptional comprehension finds it extremely hard to master cleanly, which is exactly why so many in the old dragon elephant sect never stepped into the innate realm. Myung-suk cups her palms into a hollow circle and draws breath through her nose, long and lingering as a silkworm spinning. With every breath, her sleeves lift as though a clear wind were under them. Her momentum is steady, but she catches slightly at the joint where the dragon leaping the abyss turns into the elephant treading the peak, as though invisible threads were reining her in there. Myung-son is another spectacle entirely. He sits cross-legged like a bell with his spine stacked joint on joint, following the prompt to inhale like a lurking dragon and exhale like a roaring elephant. He finds his chi momentum on the third breath. A faint azure chi seeps from his crown acupoint, and between his breaths a sound like a dragon's roar rolls in his throat. Light bursts in Gu-il-pyong's eyes, and he strokes his beard and tells my eldest that both the fourth young miss and the fifth young master are genuinely gifted. Thanks to the hall master's guidance, my son says calmly. He adds that when the Seo family first came by the minor dragon elephant technique, there was nobody to guide them, and they stumbled through the beginning of it. And in this world today, he says, who grasps the true flavor of the minor dragon elephant technique better than the hall master does? The eldest young master flatters me, Gu-il-pyong says, raising a hand and smiling. Then he adds that although the fourth young miss has extraordinary comprehension, the fifth young master surpasses her in talent for the breathing method. That finding it in a split second, even with guidance, is extremely rare in this world. My father also says fifth brother's talent is the greatest of ours, my eldest tells him, and that his achievements will surpass mine. Gu Il-pyong is quietly astonished, and his curiosity about the head of this family climbs another notch. By twilight, Myeongseon has already caught sight of the mystery and the transition between the breath and the forms. Light flashes in Gu Il-pyong's eyes, and he nods over and over and murmurs to himself that this is a good sapling. The thought of taking the boy as a disciple and passing the legacy of the sect to him even crosses his mind. He immediately puts it out again, remembering how much weight the Seo family puts on Myeongseon, and knowing they would never agree. Time trickles by. Where the red disk is sinking in the west, it makes a last desperate struggle, first bursting out in 30 feet of vermilion flame that burns the small clouds into a curtain of red gold, shrinking to a golden pellet the size of a cherry, and balancing precariously on the dark blue ridge. A flock of crows crosses the sky just then, and where their wingtips brush the light, it looks as though they have nipped away some of the gold. As the last of the sunset sweeps across the training ground, Myeongseon comes suddenly to his full height. His left palm draws an arc like a dragon wagging its tail, while his right foot stamps like an elephant shaking a mountain. The fallen leaves within 3 feet of him spin with no wind touching them at all, which means he has taken hold of the true essence of form and intent merging as one. Good Gu Il-pyong says, and applauds with admiration all over his face. You have taken the lead ahead of me again, Myeongseok says, and the praise has set her competitive streak alight. She proposes a spar and says their record used to be even and she wants to see who comes out on top today. Fourth sister Myeongseon says, just as merciless with his mouth, you want another beating. By then torches have been lit around the training field and the whole place is bright. Neither of you needs to bother, Gu Il-pyong tells them. Their levels are too low and there is very little in it for either of them. Why not join forces instead, and if either can pull even a sliver of advantage out of his hands they win. How about it? The two of them exchange one look and say good in the same breath. They take up positions on his left and his right, and the three of them draw winding dragon shapes across the blue stone. Then Myeongseok's toes touch down like a dragonfly skimming water, and her figure slips forward like a snake, every step kicking up 3 inches of dust. When Gu Il-pyong pokes at her shoulder acupoint, she brings her knee up and swings her arm, and the collision of the knee strike against his fingers gives off a faint sound of metal. Light flashes in Myeongseon's eyes and he drops his waist and drives, and the blue bricks under him crack open in spiderweb lines. His right palm pushes out with a dragon's roar rolling in his throat, while his left draws an arc like a trunk rolling up the sky. The two forces together tilt every torch within 30 feet uniformly away from them. Gu Il-pyong raises his other hand to meet it with a faint smile on his face. There is a single flat sound of impact. Brother and sister lock eyes and cross past each other and switch sides. Her sword finger goes straight into the center palace like a dragon searching an abyss, while his palm wind closes off every line of retreat like a trunk shaking a tree. In and out of the moving light, his right palm goes as crimson as a branding iron and leaves a scorch on the lapel of Gu Il-pyong's robe. Her sword finger is intercepted by a sword finger of his own. The torches all around them pop and crackle. After that round, Gu Il-pyong is genuinely surprised. Both of them stand at third-rate martial artist, and by the depth of the internal strength, Myeongseon is a fraction ahead. The girl seems quirky and eccentric, but her forms are structured and orderly, which is partly her age. Myeongseon, at the same age and behind that cold, arrogant exterior, does not follow the conventional rules at all. If he had not changed his move at the last instant and gone for the lapel by catching the man off guard, he would very likely have been intercepted cleanly. Both of them are Grandmaster seeds. Gu Il-pyong thinks, without the dragon elephant sect's secret medicinal cuisine behind them, they have already come this far, and from here they will very likely advance by leaps. What he keeps turning over is that at that age, they already know how to hide what they have and carry that kind of wit. It is exactly like Seo Myungwei, who cannot be measured from the surface and can only be understood by fighting him. He cannot work out where they learned any of it. The second young master is slick and smooth with delicate thoughts. When they discussed the details of the hall, everything essentially ran along the man's line. At every turn, he found himself pinched on some point of his own with no room left to pick a fault. The girl's perception is sharp, and her comprehension is superb. The Seo family are all freaks. Only the third young master seems ordinary, and that is only by comparison with his brothers, since set beside the descendants of other county-level noble families he would serve well enough as an heir. Gu Il-pyong has wandered a dozen years and passed through dozens of counties, and his eye is not shallow. This Seo family belongs to the upper crust of every noble house in the county, he decides, and having raised offspring like these, he really does want to meet the father they keep talking about. Once the medicinal cuisine formulas are in hand, Wani starts buying the herbs in bulk, every one of them more than 10 years old, at roughly 10 ounces of silver a dose. The formulas that assist innate martial artists are dearer still. My eldest told him not to worry about his own share for now, and inside a few days Wani has the full set of martial artist ingredients collected. The family also begins planting the same herbs in its own medicinal fields, because a house that intends to open a pharmacy needs its own source in the end, with purchases from the mountain folk on top of it. Through all of this, Wani is so busy his head spins, hiring men and opening blacksmith shops and carpenter shops and medicine shops and schools. He demands immediate results for none of it, and only lays the groundwork. Under the wall of the newly built Seo family school, Carpenter Wang squats and taps out his pipe and says the eldest young master is truly benevolent toward the likes of them. With an elementary school standing here, he says his Gusang will be able to read and write, and even if the boy never becomes a scholar, keeping accounts beats planing wood for a lifetime. Lee Sam, the water carrier, straightens his back at that, his pole creaking on his shoulder, and says it is more than that. He has heard that those with good aptitude can also learn carpentry or tailoring, or even go into the Seo family winery and learn brewing, and asks which of those is not a precious skill. He looks off at the wine flag flying over the distant winery and his throat moves. He says that a few days ago he watched the winery manager take on disciples and the pomp of it beat a wealthy family marrying off a daughter. The old bamboo weaver strokes his beard and adds, his knife rustling against the green strips, that it all depends on whom a man learns the skill from. Every skill in the Seo family is a secret transmission, he says, and learning even one of them can keep a household fed and untroubled for generations, so naturally people flock to it. It happens to be the end of classes just then, and the children come swarming out of the courtyard gates, with mulberry paper satchels, chanting the opening lines of their lesson at each other. Carpenter Wang watches their backs and knocks his pipe hard against his soul and says that once Gusong can read, he must be sent to apprentice at the Seo family dye house. He has heard that dye house works with sappanwood out of the western regions, and the silk that comes off it sells for 10 ounces of silver a bolt. Ever since the Seo family issued the decrees that benefit its servants and its martial guards, every one of them has been behind us wholeheartedly. That runs from the managing matrons at the top down to the handymen carrying water. 2 days later, in the back kitchen, a porter fills the water vat, wipes off his sweat. Then he brings up what he has heard. In the next few days, the eldest young master is going to pick sturdy youths out of the various courtyards. They are to be sent to the Dragon Elephant Martial Arts Hall to learn martial arts, and he asks whether it is true. Sister Jang, helping in the kitchen, turns around grinning and says her day is as strong as an ox and put his name down with the manager yesterday. Granny Lee, washing vegetables, exclaims that it is really true, and says her grandson Asu has outstanding aptitude and very high comprehension, and is definitely good material for martial arts. She says she will go and join in later. Sister Jang asks what she is waiting for and offers to pick the vegetables for her. The old woman is to hurry to the front courtyard and register, because this is the sort of event that changes a grandson's destiny, and how could anyone wait on it? For all the noise, every servant and maid and guard stays dedicated and dutiful, and does not dare neglect the work in front of them. They are more meticulous and more industrious than usual, and none of them looks tired, and there is a smile on every face, and something like hope in their eyes. 3 months go by in a blink. Ever since the Dragon Elephant sect's secret medicinal cuisine started flowing into the residence, the martial arts of all my sons have come along greatly. Even Wani and Myunghyun, who do not cultivate the minor Dragon Elephant technique, are opening acupoints 70 or 80% faster than before, entirely because of what that cuisine does. True secret medicinal cuisine is never leaked by the major halls or the major families, because it is the foundation, and what gets handed to the disciples of a hall is only the ordinary kind. At its height, the Dragon Elephant sect had men of grandmaster perfection presiding over it, and stood comparable to a fifth-rank family, which even in the prefecture city made it a major force. Families and schools of the upper 3 ranks are generally only seen in the imperial capital. Eldest brother, Myungyan, says cheerfully, this medicinal cuisine of the Dragon Elephant sect really is extraordinary. Even for his younger brother, there is a 3 or 4 in 10 hope of reaching Huchian Peak before he comes of age. Unblocking the acupoints matters, my eldest says, but martial skill must not fall behind either. Previously, the family had collected very little and there was not much to choose from, he says. Now that we hold part of the martial foundation of the Dragon Elephant sect, we must use it properly and play the advantage out to the end. Understood, eldest brother, Myunghyun says. Then a trace of longing comes back into his face and he says he wonders what the foundation of the Dragon Elephant sect looked like at its peak. He supposes that what the Seo family has now does not amount to a fifth of it. Perhaps, my eldest says, smiling faintly. Just then Wani strolls in from outside the main hall. Second brother Myunghyun says, smiling, I have not seen you in a long time. How could I be as leisurely as you? Wani says, with every business in this family running through me, and lately he has barely had time to cultivate it all. Then I have made great progress, Myunghyun says. Hearing that, my eldest thinks of the innate 5 elements creation art. Among all of the brothers and the sister, Only the fifth has the aptitude for immortal cultivation. The Seo family has been handed the great chance of entering the Tao through martial arts, and every one of them may yet cultivate immortality, and he expects Wani to walk that road with him. It is only that his father gave instructions that a man must reach the innate realm before any of it is revealed, and he does not dare disobey. After a moment, he lifts his head and tells Wani that the family business matters, certainly, but his own martial arts must never be put down. Otherwise, father will be angry, he says, since the old man tests them every half year. Let us wait a while longer, Wani says. Once the new businesses are on track, he will be able to free himself up. My eldest nods. Actually, I find it very strange that father insists on forcing us down the martial road, Myungyan says. Even if we reach the innate realm, what of it, since we are all dust after 100 years? Father has his own plans, my eldest tells him, and says that when the punishment comes, he should not blame his brother for failing to plead with father on his behalf. Eldest brother Myungyan says, I was joking. My eldest is the future head of this family and at present the strongest of them, and his word carries enormous weight among the brothers and their sister. Practice more when you have time, he tells them. He has heard that Seol Hui and Myeongshang have both come a long way in these 3 months, and the 2 elder brothers had better not be overtaken. It is even better if we are overtaken, Wani says, laughing. It shows this family is full of talent, and if there were 2 more martial geniuses like eldest brother the Seo family would truly be secure. Then my eldest asks whether he has heard something. He knows Wani well enough to know the man does not shoot without a target, and Myunghyun puts his smile away at once. Only rumors, Wani says. County Vice Magistrate Yang has left, but his tiger prestige still lingers, and the Seo family is not weak at the moment either. It is only that he feels it would be best to have our own people inside official circles. If one of the brothers could become magistrate or vice magistrate or county commander, that would be a fine thing. That depends on opportunity, my eldest says. It is not something a man becomes because he wants to, so it can wait. Then his pupils narrow slightly and something cold goes across the bottom of his eyes. He says that as for other families and clans, if they dare come and infringe, the Seo family will never show mercy. Listening to his brother, he decides he should also find an occasion to put his own martial might on display. The deterrence carried by a family with an innate martial artist in it is nothing like that of an ordinary house. As far as he knows, there are only 5 families in the whole of Cheonggang County with that foundation. The O and the Bang and the Wang and the Ha and the Cho. Behind the 3 major martial arts halls stand the O and the Bang and the Wang. If Yangzhou had not been dropped into the county from above, the vice magistracy might well have gone to an innate martial artist out of the Wang or the Ha or the Cho. Generally, a man has to have entered the innate realm before 50 to hold one of those posts, and past 60 it is impossible to be elected. Those elected are mostly prestigious, powerful locals, or else appointments dropped in from above like Yangzhou, who come to gild themselves and collect some record and then leave. How are things at the hall, my eldest asks, having decided the opening of the Dragon Elephant Martial Arts Hall might be the right occasion. Another half month and it will be finished, Wani says. They have already scouted more than a dozen children of their own household servants and guards, and maids with decent bone structure to be raised as the first intake. They have also hired 5 first-class martial artists as instructors. It is just, he says, and pauses, and hesitates a long time before finishing, that very few children and youths from wealthy families have actually been drawn in. There is no rush on that, my eldest tells him, and reminds him of his own saying, that good goods have no trouble selling. The opening should be lively, and people will come by reputation afterward. Wani turns it over, lifts his eyes and smiles at himself a little, and says the reasoning is correct enough. Up at Byokan Pond, the divination gives me an auspicious day and tells me I will cultivate bitterly here and obtain an opportunity. An opportunity. This reading only ever answers what I actually ask it, so it has its uses but not many for me at present, though asking every day does keep strengthening the power of my soul. I do not linger on it and start the day's work. It is late morning before it happens. Spiritual insight arrives all at once and I feel the power of heaven and earth around me. The pores over the whole of my body seem to open and breathe, while every acupoint in me drags that power inward in a flood. My bones make a series of strange cracking sounds one after another, and then fine black matter starts oozing out through the surface of my skin, cleansing the marrow and washing the bones. That is the fortune a man is given only on the first successful guiding of chi into the body. Half an hour later, I open my eyes with cyan light moving in them and let the joy show on my face. Innate, and it is done. The impact of lifespan and natural bone structure really is enormous, though. I had 3 major destiny traits blessing me and still only broke through as I approached 40. Anyone else starting martial arts at 25 or 26 would count himself superior in aptitude for making third rate at all. The younger a man is, the easier the acupoints clear, and past 20 the difficulty climbs step by step. I catch the smell coming off my own skin and laugh at it. walk over to the pond, strip everything off onto a large blue stone at the edge, and go in. The cold is straight into the bone, and it makes me shudder all over. I run the innate chi through myself until the whole body is warm and then settle into the ice water like a man taking an ordinary soak. Let us go down and look. I take a deep breath and dive for the bottom. The water turns out deeper than I had guessed and the consumption steeper, and in the end I give it up and float back to the surface. How strange this place is. There may genuinely be a rare opportunity down there. I think about it for a while and decide to come back and try again another day. Then it occurs to me I have not been down the mountain in 3 months, and I have no idea how the rascals are getting on. I put my hands behind my back with the corner of my mouth already lifting, and walk down. All the way along, farmland and fruit groves and patrolling guards and farmers in the fields, and every one of them cups his hands and bows and calls out to the family head. The Seo family has won the hearts of the people here, whatever else it has done. One of the guards runs ahead to the estate to report that I have come down, and the place goes into an uproar. My 3 eldest sons are delighted beyond measure, and the same thought lands in all of them, that father is coming down the mountain, and it can only mean a breakthrough. My eldest understands better than any of them why I went up in the first place, and there is elation moving in him. The Seo family has a second innate expert. Wani and Myunghyun are sent to the main gate to meet me first, while he goes to fetch his mother and his wife. The call that the family head is back goes courtyard by courtyard and is through the whole residence a moment later. Myung-suk stops her fist practice at once, says that father has come down the mountain, calls Sobak, jumps onto his back and sprints for the entrance. Myung-seon riding the wind at his feet right behind her. The head of the Seo family, Gu Yeopyeong, murmurs to himself and walks toward the main entrance with his hands behind his back. Not long after, my eldest comes supporting Yonghwa while Baekjong walks slowly alongside them. By the time I get there, the entrance is crowded. 2 full rows of manservants and maidservants and guards with the masters of the family standing in the middle of them. Such a grand display. From a distance I see the crowd and my mouth lifts, and then I shake my head at it, since all I have done is walk down a hill. When I reach the gate, Baekjong comes over with her eyes wet, ducks her head to wipe them, and says that I still remember how to come home. Feeling lonely, I ask her, laughing, and tell her I will keep her company tonight. You still love running your mouth, she says, and there is a smile in it. Then all 5 of them come forward together behind my eldest, and call out to their father in one voice, and I smile and nod at them. Myung-suk and Myung-seon get to my sides first, and he keeps some restraint about it while she simply throws her arms around me. The 2 of them are still at the age for that, and the rest of them are past it. Anyone would think we had been parted for years, I say, caught between laughing and giving up. Then my eye lands on Gu Il-pyong in the crowd, and I go over smiling and ask whether he is Hall Master Gu, and say he must be laughing at the spectacle. These are genuine feelings coming out, he says, so how could he laugh, and says it makes him envious instead. Watching the whole household line the path to welcome me stirs something in him. He has wandered half his life and is still alone. I tell everyone to go about their own business, and the maidservants and manservants salute respectfully and start to disperse. Let us go to the main hall and talk, I say. Yonghwa and I will walk somewhere else, my wife says with a faint smile. Do not let her overexert herself, I tell her. Do I need reminding by you? She says, and takes the girl back to the inner courtyard while the rest of us go through to the hall. Father, you have come down at a very convenient moment, Wani says, smiling. In another half-month, the Dragon Elephant Martial Arts Hall opens, and with a great expert of the late in-it stage like Hall Master Gu holding the fort, he supposes there will be no problems. Dolly, you go and prop up the scene when the time comes, I tell my eldest. It will not do to keep troubling Hall Master Gu to make a move personally. Yes, father, he says. Then he turns to Gu Il-pyong and asks how he has been finding the Seo family and whether the hospitality has fallen short anywhere. After a few rounds of small talk, we walk out to the training ground, and I have my eldest test his brothers and his sister one by one. On the whole, it satisfies me. They have taken what I said to heart and put honest effort into the martial Tao. Then there is Wani. If you do not work harder, I tell him, you are going to be overtaken by Seol Hui and Myung-son. Father, he says, I have already worked very hard. I do not mean to blame you, I say smiling. The Seo family would not have any of this without your enormous contributions, but you have to make progress on the martial road as well. I certainly do not want one of my 5 children to be the only one stuck at Hushan Peak. Yes, father, he says, with his brows down and his face fallen and his whole body full of gloom. If the wealthy merchants of Cheonggang County could see him standing like that, they would never believe it was the same smooth, high-spirited creature they all call the god of wealth of the Seo family. That night I make up for several months of my wife's loneliness thoroughly, and afterwards she lies against me enjoying how quiet the room is gone. She draws small circles on my chest with one finger and asks her husband whether he had a major breakthrough up the mountain this time. Did my wife not witness it herself? I say, with the corner of my mouth going up as I look down at her and my other hand wandering across her back. She thinks about the last hour and her face goes hot and red. She is nearing 40 now and behaves like a wolf or a tiger about it, and she has decided she was a little too unrestrained. We are husband and wife, I tell her, laughing. What is there to be shy about between the two of us in bed? It is all my husband's fault for having so many tricks, she says, and she has no idea where he thinks them up. Were you not thoroughly immersed in it yourself? I ask her. She goes redder and says with some annoyance that if I keep talking like that, she will lose her temper. I laugh and tell her I will stop. Then I turn serious. After several months up the mountain, I tell her, your husband has finally broken through and become an innate martial artist. Innate, she says, and the word comes out twice. She knows exactly what it means. The innate martial artists in the whole of Chunggang County can be counted on a man's fingers. She looks at me as though it cannot be true and says that I only started cultivating at 26. So how could I possibly have become an innate martial artist? That only shows your husband is endowed with exceptional talent, I tell her. In every respect as it happens. There is no need to spread it about though, I say. It is good for the Seo family to hold one more card. I am not one to run my mouth, she says. I know, I tell her, and kiss her on the forehead and tell her she is tired tonight too, and should rest. There is plenty of time ahead of us. Half a month later, a little west of the East Market in Chonggang County, a large courtyard with towering gates has come up in the 3rd month. Inside it there are pavilions and terraces and rockeries and blue-green ponds. There is a wide open space laid in bluestone as well. Rows of wooden dummy posts at differing heights stand along the southwest corner. The southeast corner holds racked weapons, spears and broadswords and swords and halberds. Every piece wiped until it throws back a cold edge of light. A pair of heavy stone lions sits at the gate, and not far off a tall willow lets 1,000 branches down into the emerald square pond. The plaque over the entrance carries the name of the Dragon Elephant Martial Arts Hall in gold. Red firecracker paper covers the ground. Red silk hangs from the plaque, and the main entrance is packed. Wealthy merchants in lavish clothing standing shoulder to shoulder with commoners in plain cloth. Everyone, Seo Myungwei says, today the Seo family opens the Dragon Elephant Martial Arts Hall, and we ask for your kind support. He is the next head of the Seo family and a grandmaster seed with talent nobody else in the county can match. So his word stands for the family and carries its full weight. Please come inside, he says. The Wang family sends a pair of dragon-patterned jade pendants. The O family sends 3 high-grade treasured sabers. With a hall opening, guests naturally arrive carrying congratulatory gifts. Not every guest means well, though, and not every gift does either. The Seo family wants to cut into the martial arts hall trade in Chonggang County. Every noble family present understands that perfectly, and the vast majority have come for the show. Behind the 3 major halls stand the O and the Bang and the Wang, the 3 strongest houses in the county, each with close to 200 years of transmission and a deep foundation. Set against them, the Seo family is still far the lesser house. With Yang Zhou transferred up to the commandery city, their scruples about us have dropped a few notches, since a mighty dragon does not crush a snake on the snake's own ground. On top of that, the Seo family is now moving against their interests, so trouble and suppression were never avoidable. The 3 of my sons present today are Seo Myungwi and Wani and Myungkyun. They walk the guests through the place and then introduce the hired instructors and Gu Ilpyong as hallmaster. None of the noble families takes Gu Ilpyong seriously. To them he is an open puppet of the Seo family with all the real say sitting in Seo hands. Eldest young master Seo, one of them says, we have toured this Dragon Elephant Martial Arts Hall, and it is built decently enough. The true core of a hall is its instructors and its hall master. If there are no good teachers to instruct, he says, then even coming here to study is a waste of a man's time. Would you not agree? The man who has stepped out is stalwart and middle-aged, wearing a black gauze cloak with golden dragons worked into the collar. There is a trace of contempt sitting at the corners of his eyes as he looks at my son. The Black Wind Hall Master has views that are genuinely insightful and refreshing, Seo Myungwei says, and asks how he would define a good teacher. A hall is centered on martial arts, the man says, and among martial artists the strong stand above everyone. Understood, my son says, and asks which man from his sect he intends to send. There is no need to waste time, he says. I will test them personally. Then please move to the training ground, my son says. The whole crowd comes down on the training ground in a mass. The Black Wind Hall Master walks to the middle of the open space and sweeps his eyes over the men standing beside my son. Eldest young Master Seo, he says, who do you plan to send out? And assures him that this Wang will not lean on his seniority to bully a junior. This humble one has admired the Hall Master a long while and would like to ask for guidance, my son says, and walks out to stand opposite him. Something lights in the older man's eyes, and the thought of crippling Seo Myungwi's martial road with a bad enough injury goes through him. My eldest is too large a threat. If he is put down here and now, the development of the Seo family is set back more than 20 years. Make your move, eldest young master Seo, the Black Wind Hall Master says, and let this Hall Master see where your strength stands. His confidence is not baseless. He has held the innate realm for many years. Although he is still only in its early stage, his foundation is extremely solid, and putting down 7 or 8 men at Hucheon Peak would cost him nothing. My son wastes no words. He crosses the distance in a single burst and attacks right in front of the man, his palms sliding and winding like a snake and throwing rows of afterimages into the air. The palm wind whistles as it comes at the chest with an eerie shifting momentum. The Black Wind Hall Master's pupils contract, and he retreats fast. But my son's speed matches his exactly, and the palm seal stays fastened to him like a green snake that will not let go. He leaps, turns over in the air, and lands behind him. My son turns his palms into fists, and the soft becomes hard and overbearing. The fist wind comes down with the momentum of rolling hills and overturning seas and presses without a pause. The Black Wind Hall Master has already given ground once, and giving it again would tell everyone watching that he is afraid. And who is he? One of the few innate martial artists in the whole of Chongqing County, and a man of very high seniority in the Wang family besides, uncle to its head. If he retreats now, the Wang family retreats before the Seo family. He holds nothing back and calls the Black Wind palm, a stream of black chi condensing into a black handprint that goes straight to meet the fist. Innate true chi, my son says, and tells him this humble one happened to master it not long ago. Then the true chi erupts out of him. The fist wind turns gold and condenses into a golden fist, dazzling with light, carrying overbearing force to its outer limit. Fist and palm collide in the air with black and gold each holding half of it. A few breaths later there is a loud boom and the two of them are each driven back several steps, and they come out even. The eldest young master of the Seo family is actually broken through into the innate realm, somebody says. He is not even 20 yet, is he? Says another. 3 more months after the coming of age sacrifice, and he turns 20, somebody answers. As expected of a future Grand Master, another says that having only just entered the innate realm, he already stands level with a veteran like the Black Wind Hall Master. The noble families all around exclaim over it, and some of the houses that came purely to watch the commotion find something moving in them at the sight. At that rate of breaking through, if Seo Myongwei is given another 10 years or so, is there not a real possibility of a Grandmaster martial artist? With that kind of martial deterrence, there would not be a noble family in the whole of Chongqing County willing to provoke us. Even the government would be careful, because the strongest martial power in the county city stands only at innate perfection. The Black Wind Hall Master is vigorous for his age, my son calls, and tells him to come again. The man's face goes ashen as though he has been insulted, and he begins aiming every move at a fatal point. One attacks and one defends, and the roles keep switching. Through it, the Black Wind Hall Master notices that my son's strength keeps growing fiercer, as though there were no ceiling on it at all. An innate martial artist's true chi is finite, though. If every move is genuinely driven that hard, then after a few dozen exchanges the ki will be spent. Inside a short while, the Black Wind Hall Master is the one being suppressed. Exchange after exchange leaves the webs between his thumbs and forefingers shaken numb until he nearly lacks the strength to grip a weapon, and by then he is only holding on out of stubbornness. Carried further, his hands will take tendon and bone damage or be crippled outright. What terrifying tendons and bones, he thinks. A genuine martial prodigy. The man is past 60 and his bone quality has begun to loosen. Of course he is no match for a young martial artist in the same realm, let alone an innate martial artist as blessed with fate and talent as my son. My son stops his hands just as he is caught between digging in and conceding. You are an elder and a senior, he says, and your experience is beyond anything a junior like me can compare with, and he proposes ending the test there. The Black Wind Hall Master is startled, and since the way out has been handed to him, he lets his breath go. Then it strikes him again that his opponent is not yet 20 and only just entered the innate realm. He has been immersed in it over a dozen years, and though he has not broken into the middle stage, his foundation is steady. A young man throwing wild punches really can beat an old master to death. Eldest young Master So has peerless talent, he says with a soft sigh, and it will not be long before he passes this old man. People get old after all. Then he steps out of the arena and goes back to stand with the Wang family. I wonder whether any other senior wishes to offer some guidance, my son says. His gaze turns sharp and sweeps the surroundings like a blade tip, and ordinary men will not meet it. His expression stays calm and unhurried, and there is already something of a grandmaster in the way he stands. The O and the Bang look at each other with deep dread moving behind their eyes, breaking through to the innate realm without a sound and holding it back until now, to be shown in front of everybody. Men who carry both martial power and that kind of calculation are usually the most frightening kind. Guo Piong has decent talent on the martial Dao, but is poor at management, and propping up the Dragon Elephant Martial Arts Hall on his own was never possible. That is exactly why he came to us. Please make a move, elder brother, the head of the O family says quietly, and suppress the arrogance of the Seo family. The clan brother he means is the master of the Qianryong Martial Arts Hall, much younger than the Black Wind Hall master at 45 or 46, already in the middle stage of the innate realm. Seo Myeonwi is not simple, the Qianryong Hall master says, having watched that exchange closely. His bone structure is remarkable, and his physical strength is probably a shade above mine, and the middle stage of innate holds nothing over the early stage except a little more true qi. At his full strength I can suppress him at best, he says, and my age is what it is, so if we come out even then in everyone's eyes, the loser is still me. The head of the O family frowns and thinks and then says that in that case they should target the Hallmaster instead. Injuring him badly enough would cost the Dragon Elephant Martial Arts Hall just as much face. The Qianryong Hall master glances at Gu Yilpyong standing beside Wani and says indifferently that this will do. Nephew Myongwi, the head of the O family, says, praising him with a smile, "You truly deserve to be called the Grand Master Seat of Chunggang County. If you served as Hallmaster here, he believes nobody present would object. Does the head of the O family wish to test Hallmaster Gu's strength?" my son says. The corners of his mouth curl with a smile that says he has seen all the way through it. A family head on good terms with the O speaks up and says the O family is entirely correct. If a hall's strength is insufficient, it cannot hold the fort and cannot teach disciples. He asks whether the instructors are to be injured by their own students instead. At that, Gu Ilpyong can hardly stay silent, and he steps forward a few paces. If everyone in Chunggang County wishes to test Gu's martial Dao, that is of course acceptable, he says. The Black Wind Hall master has already fought the eldest young master, he says. So why not have the master of the Qianryong Martial Arts Hall and the master of the Black Tiger Martial Arts Hall spar with him together? What do the two of you think, he asks. Somebody sneers at once and says Hall Master Gu is being far too arrogant, wanting to fight two Hall Masters at the same time. Another says that holding off one of them without being beaten would already be enough to anchor a hall. Gu Ilpyong's face does not change under any of it. He walks to the center of the ground, shakes his frame, and a presence erupts off him and turns into a fierce wind that sweeps outward in every direction. It is not a hair less terrifying than what came off my son and the Black Wind Hall master. Another innate, somebody says. Where on earth did the Seo family find an innate martial artist, says another, and a third says nobody in Cheonggang County has ever heard of such a man. The crowd goes into an uproar of whispering. A cyan glint surfaces in the Qianryong Hall master's eyes. He tells the Black Tiger Hall master that since Hall Master Gu wants both of them at once, they might as well grant his wish. The Black Tiger Hall master nods. Both of them turn into streams of afterimages and glide into the center of the ground. The three look at each other and go straight into it. The Qianryong Hall master and the Black Tiger Hall master come in from left and right. One shapes a dragon claw with his palm, and the other a tiger claw, and they strike both of Gu Ilpyong's flanks at once. He blocks sideways with his arms and turns them both aside easily. Then his move changes and his hands coil like green snakes, going for the arms of both men. The two of them are nobody's fools either and change their moves at the exact same instant. They counter one another over and over, and ordinary eyes can follow nothing but a blur of shifting afterimages. Dozens of breaths pass. Gu Ilpyong fighting two men alone and staying level. With two Hallmasters genuinely shakes a large part of the crowd. Both of those Hallmasters are middle stage innate martial artists standing at their peak. They are not putting on a show, are they, people wonder. Two middle stage innate martial artists, and they cannot take down a nobody. This is not an ordinary middle stage innate martial artist at all, some of them think. It might be the late stage. The Qianryong Hall Master and the Black Tiger Hall Master exchange a look with horror moving in their eyes. They stop holding back and begin using innate true qi to drive their martial arts. True qi can leave the body and carries peerless force, and depending on the technique and the skill behind it, it can carry particular effects as well. The Heavenly Dragon Claw and the Black Tiger Fierce Fiend Fist come at Gu Ilpyong's chest, one after the other in the same breath. A Golden Claw and a Crimson Fist. Dragon Elephant Protective Shield, Gu Ilpyong calls. A roaring of dragons and a trumpeting of elephants comes out of his body and forms a dark cyan shell of true qi, and it stops both the Golden Claw and the Crimson Fist dead. The sound rings outward, and a good many people in the crowd feel a roar in their ears and a sting starting in their heads. It lasts only a split second, and it is fortunate that it does, since anyone there who is not a martial artist would have had his hearing ruined. Both Hall Masters are driven backward. Dragon Elephant Combined Strike, Gu Ilpyong calls. While the two of them are still unsteady, he sends the Qianryong Hall Master flying with one punch and kicks the Black Tiger Hall Master off his feet with the next motion. The whole ground goes quiet. The only sound anywhere is the small click of throats working as people swallow. Hall Master Gu, my son says, I think the sparring has reached about the right point. Gu Ilpyong reins the presence back in at once. The two hall masters get slowly to their feet with their faces pale and their auras unsteady, and even so, both of them cup their fists toward him and thank him for showing mercy. Easy to say, Gu Il-pyong tells them, then scans the crowd and asks who else would like to spar with Gu, and says that whoever it is, Gu is willing to go with him to the end. The silence is total. Hallmaster Gu is joking, somebody says, laughing. We could not be happier about the founding of the Dragon Elephant Martial Arts Hall, says another. Hallmaster Gu's strength is peerless across the whole county, says a third, and with him holding the fort, the hall's business will flourish by the day. The crowd has changed faces entirely, and every one of them is now fawning over Gu Il-pyong in the hall. Then thank you all for your support, he says, and cups his fists to all sides without any warmth in it. The five major families, the O and the Bang and the Wang and the Ha and the Cho, beat a retreat. They have lost face today and come within a hair of being the joke of the county, and there is no reason for them to stay, so they leave quickly. The other wealthy merchants and rich households all intend to send their own children here now, and stand about chatting easily with Gu Il-pyong. After that day, the news runs through the whole of Cheonggang County that Seo Myongwei broke through to the Init realm and overwhelmed the Black Wind Hall master. That Gu Il-pyong fought two men at once and suppressed the masters of the other two major halls. Even the surrounding villages have it inside a day, and it moves that fast because Wani is pushing it along behind the scenes. At the mansion in Dongseo village, my mouth curls slightly when it reaches me, since none of it falls outside what I expected. The foundations of the three major halls had been thoroughly worked out by my family, while the foundations of the Seo family were something they knew nothing about. So of course they came off second. On top of that, my eldest son's attainment with a bow and my own existence are two further cards this house has not laid down. Cheonggang County should hold steady for a while, I say to myself. And then I look up at the long bow hanging on the wall. It is also time to forge Dolly a new and stronger one. Father, Wani says, ever since the Dragon Elephant Martial Arts Hall made its name in a single battle, a great many families have come to us and even sent their descendants to train there. There are 60 or 70 apprentices in it now. He is looking at me in the family head seat in the main hall with the delight hard to keep off his face. What about Hallmaster Gu? I ask. Hallmaster Gu is naturally picking out the youths suited to carrying the Dragon Elephant legacy, he says. Picks up his teacup and takes a small sip before setting it down, and adding that the man's requirements are high, and he has not found anyone yet. And that boy Li Ji, I ask, is he still at the Cheonryong Martial Arts Hall? I had him leave a few days ago, Wani says, and he has joined the Dragon Elephant Hall now. I nod at that. Li Ji's talent is better than Myunghyun's, I tell him. If he is trained to the standard we set for the direct line of this family, then reaching in it will be no problem at all. He may well go to innate perfection or make a run at Grandmaster. Have Hallmaster Gu train him properly, I say, and if the man takes a liking to the boy, have Li Ji take him as his master, which deepens our tie to him as well. Wani is a little surprised, not having expected me to rate Li Ji so highly, and he cups his hands and says his father is far-sighted and he is filled with admiration. Has the blacksmith shop been set up, I ask. Yes, he says. Then have them forge a powerful bow fit for an innate martial artist, I tell him. Spare no materials, find whatever they ask for, and remember to keep it quiet. I see, he says, and laughs. I look at my second son and shake my head at him, smiling, and say that so he knows now. Who else in this family practices archery besides eldest brother, he says. This is a gift for your brother, I tell him. Are 2 months enough? 2 months is more than enough, he says, and then puts on a wounded face and complains that he has not had a gift from his father since he grew up. It is not simply a gift, I tell him. It is another card for the Seo family to hold. Now that Dolly has reached the Init realm, his strength has climbed, and the old black iron bow no longer serves. Only something stronger is worthy of him and lets him put out everything he has. How strong can eldest brother be with a bow, Wani asks. Curious. At long range, I tell him, he should be able to kill a late-stage innate martial artist. He takes a sharp breath and his eyes go wide with disbelief. What I said is not idle. Innate true chi is powerful and can be sent out of the body, but its reach is limited and it weakens the further it travels. With my eldest son's talent and his attainment in archery, he can hold down an innate martial artist from several miles away with a bow, while the man cannot touch him at all. With innate divine strength behind it, he can draw and shoot for long stretches, and arrows at that power and speed would be extremely difficult for an innate martial artist to avoid. One lapse of attention brings a severe injury or a death. A card like that certainly cannot be shown lightly, Wani says, believing me, and his expression turns serious. Leave it to me, father, he says. I will have them forge a powerful bow that eldest brother likes. 2 months pass and Cheonggang County stays calm while the family's various industries develop steadily. On the 10th day of the 11th month, I hand the bow Wani had forged to my eldest son. Eldest brother, Wani says, this bow is a rare thing. It took nearly 2 months and consumed a great many precious materials. The body is forged from 1,000-year cold iron and water-sunken wood in combination, which gives it strength and flexibility together. The arms are carved with fine frost patterns and inlaid with silver wire. The string is top-quality snow silkworm silk, and the nocks are set with bluefield jade. My eldest strokes it gently with joy all over his face. The arrows are no less, Wani says. The shafts are cast from the same 1,000-year cold iron, and the fletching comes from the feathers of a mutant silver eagle, light and tough, each one carrying a silver-white shimmer. The heads are ground from obsidian and are murderously sharp. Second brother, Myunghyun, says, envious, that sounds extraordinary, and he wants one too. Then you have to ask father, Wani tells him, since father is the one who told me to forge it, and besides, do you even know how to use a bow? Myunghyun has nothing to say to that. Thank you, father, my eldest says. And thank you, Wani, and says he likes it very much, and he means it. Give it a name, I tell him, smiling faintly. This bow is cold under the hand, he says. He will call it the frost bow. And as for the arrows, with their silver feathers flying together, they are enough to pierce cloud and break through emptiness. They will be the cloud-piercing arrows. Frost and cloud-piercing are good names, I tell him. Then I tell him his father hopes he uses this bow and these arrows to protect the Seo family and to put holes through the hearts of our enemies. Yes, father, he says. Over a month later comes the year-end sacrifice, and after it my eldest reaches 20. By then Yang Younghwa is close to her time, and the midwife has already moved into the residence. Half a month after that she goes into labor. My son paces back and forth outside the door. Hearing what is coming out of that room, he sweats through his forehead with worry all over his face, which fighting an innate martial artist has never once done to him. I point at him and laugh and tell my wife to look, that I was pacing about exactly like this once, and now it is our Dolly's turn. She pinches me hard and tells her husband to be serious, and I let go of it and say it is my fault. He tries to push his way in several times and I stop him each time. Wani is busy in Cheonggang County, and Younghyun and the others are at the Dragon Elephant Martial Arts Hall, coming home only once every 6 or 7 days. With Younghwa in labor, I sent guards out to call them all back. More than 4 hours pass. Then the door opens and a maid comes out smiling and tells the family head and the madam and the eldest young master that the eldest young madam has given birth to a young master. Good, I say, 3 times over, laughing, and tell my son to hurry in. He goes through the door without a word and is at the bedside like a gust of wind before he has so much as looked at the child. He brushes the soaked hair off Yang Younghwa's forehead and holds her hand tight and tells his wife she has worked hard. She smiles slightly. She has taken a chi and blood pill to replenish herself and still looks worn through, her face pale. Then my wife and I come in as well. Baekjong takes the infant from the midwife in his wrapping of good silk and rocks him with her whole face gone soft, saying that this is her eldest grandson. I come over for a look myself and then tell Yang Younghwa to rest well, and she says yes, father. Soon my other children arrive, one after another. Is my eldest nephew out yet? Wani shouts before he is even through the door. Quiet down, I tell him. If you wake my eldest grandson, watch out or I will throw you out of here. Father, he says, teasing, now that you have a grandson you do not love me anymore. And it turns out affection really does move on. Everybody else falls about laughing at that. Myung-suk leans her head in and tells the baby softly that she is his aunt and he should call her auntie. He was born an hour ago, my wife says, smiling. How could he speak? Dolly, I ask, have you thought of a name? He says that by the generational characters I set down the child belongs to the Deok generation, that he hopes the boy grows into an upright man, whose virtue is plain to see, so let him be called Seo Deokjo. Deokjo, I say. A gentleman values virtue and his character should be clear and bright. It is a good name. Then I laugh out loud, take the child, and make foolish noises at him to get a rise out of him, and after me the rest of them take turns holding him. Deokjo being born means they are no longer the youngest generation in this house, but elders in it. And when a man standing shifts, his mind shifts with it. That same day I reward the maids and the servants and the guards with another half-month of wages, so that all of them have a share of the gladness. At night the stars are like ink and cannot be told apart. And before long a thin drizzle starts coming down. My wife says that Dolly is married with a child now, and asks whether we should be thinking about Wani next. She is tucked into my arms and lifts her head suddenly to look at my face. I have already spoken to him about it, I tell her. Yes, she says, and several months have gone by without any movement at all. There is something plaintive in her voice. She adds that it is said the O and the Bang and the Wang and the Ha and the Cho all intend to move on the Seo family. She has been asking around, she says. The head of the O family has a young miss in the prime of her youth, the second daughter of one of his branches, and by all accounts skilled in martial arts. If the two houses were joined by marriage, she says, it settles Wani's lifelong matter and steadies the Seo family's footing in Cheonggang County at the same time. And she asks what her husband thinks. I know you are doing it for his sake, I tell her, but I still hope he finds somebody he likes. She is unhappy at once and asks whether this is not all my fault. You require them to keep themselves clean and disciplined, she says. They are direct-line young masters of a great family without so much as a maid in their chambers, or she would have been holding a grandson long ago. And you have him running a family business that size at his age while pushing him to keep at his martial arts besides, she says. How is he supposed to have time to find a wife? I smile bitterly at that and pull her in and tell her it is all my fault. We will do it her way, I say, and she should go and speak to him herself. Thank you, husband, she says, and her whole expression changes now that she has what she wanted. And she offers to help me tonight. I tell her I prefer to do it myself, and roll over on top of her, and the rest of the night goes the way those nights go. Once she is deeply asleep, I summon the genealogy. The third page has grown and it is blank, since Deokjo's information will not appear until his blood goes into it. But even without information, I can perceive the destiny talents he was born with. There are 7 of them. They are the Divine Farmer's 100 Herbs, and the Golden Koi and the 9 Palaces Tao Evolution and Sword Heart Clarity, and the Blood Key Furnace and Swift Wind Chasing Lightning and Insight into the Subtle. The Blood Kai Furnace is the one most suited to walking the martial path. Swift Wind Chasing Lightning is good for comprehending movement techniques and footwork, and sends a man's speed soaring. Insight into the subtle can perceive the human heart and look straight into the essence of a thing, and that one cannot be given away lightly. Sword Heart Clarity applies to the martial path and the immortal path alike, since the sword belongs to both, but a man obsessed with the sword is not the man to run a family. The Divine Farmer's 100 Herbs is good for planting, knows the properties of 100 herbs, and can even carry a man into alchemy, and it fits me closely. I have studied agriculture since I was a boy, and under Heaven Rewards diligence I became a master of it and a fine planter. Adding the Divine Farmer's 100 Herbs on top of that would be wings fitted to a tiger. Knowing the properties of 100 herbs, I could research medicinal cuisine better suited to assisting the martial path, and make it a foundation of this house. Once I am a cultivator, I could refine pills for the family as well. The Golden Koi is a halo of luck, and it is better left for the descendants. I shake my head and smile at myself for being greedy. The 9 Palaces Tao Evolution is good for deducing formations, and a great formation can become the foundation a family is established on. Though it is a pity that it is still too early for the Seo family as it stands. The next day, my wife arrives at Wani's courtyard, where he is already up and practicing in the yard. A servant stands to one side with a sweat towel, and a maid holds a teacup waiting for him to finish so she can serve it, and both of them bow when they see her. He stops at the sound and turns and smiles and asks why his mother is here so early in the morning, and where his father is. He is also practicing, she says. What has he taught this whole family to be like? Everyone up before dawn exactly like this. Then she shakes her head and sighs softly. Mother, Wani says, father leads by example and his sons naturally follow. And surely she does not want her sons to be like the young masters of the aristocratic families in Chonggang County. Of course not, she says, and tells him she was only complaining. Your mother came here to tell you something. Please speak, mother, he says. I have set my sights on the second daughter of one of the branches of the head of the O family for you, she says. In 2 days I will invite Madame O and the young miss of the O family to be guests here. You should meet her. Meet the young miss of the O family, he says with a bitter smile, and points out that his mother knows perfectly well what stands between the O family and ours at present. It is precisely because I know that you must meet her, she says. If the houses are joined by marriage, it will certainly ease things between us, and it settles your lifelong matter into the bargain. Does father know? He asks. He promised to let me find somebody myself. It is the only card he has left, and he plays it. I knew it would come to this, my wife says, and her lips curl with something smug in them. I asked your father last night. But, he starts. No more of that, she says. The matter is settled, and I will let you know when the time comes. Then she raises a hand to stop him. She knows this second son of hers can talk black into white, and if she lets him get going, she will be argued around inside a few sentences. She walks straight out of his courtyard. Wani is put out enough that he does not go back to practice. He wipes off the sweat and drinks his tea and comes straight to find me. I am cultivating the 5 elements creation art at the time. In the morning face east and swallow the blue clouds, and at noon face south and drink the cinnabar. In the evening face west and take in the white dew, and at night face north and sip the mysterious ice. In the hours between guard the yellow court. That is the chi gathering formula. It takes in the 5 elements, makes up what the spiritual root lacks, and perfects the innate creation, with inward visualization and outward interaction both. It runs through spring and summer and autumn and winter without stopping. Father, he says, coming before me and bowing with cupped hands, I do not stop and do not open my eyes and only ask what it is. Father has such wisdom, he says, so why ask when you already know? There is real annoyance in his voice. I do not mind it and smile and ask what harm there is in meeting her, and who told him to be so slow. How can matters of the heart simply happen, he says. They require fate. And is the fate not standing right here? I ask him. Your eldest brother and your sister-in-law fell in love at first sight. Do you want to learn from them? He opens his mouth and finds he has nothing to argue with. Love at first sight is an enviable thing, but if he genuinely had to wait on it, he would likely still be alone at 30 or 40. He spends his days on the family business, and the people he meets out there are the heads of merchant houses and wealthy households, a crowd of old men. He is not going to be struck through the heart by any of them. In your position, the only workable road is somebody of equal standing, I tell him. As for feelings, you can fall in love after the marriage. Your mother and I did. He has nothing at all to say to that. A moment later, he sighs heavily and says meeting her is fine, but he has one condition, and the final decision has to be his. Naturally, I tell him. Thank you, father, he says. Having won what he wanted, he goes straight to his eldest brother's courtyard and lays it out there as well. My eldest laughs out loud and says their mother is doing it for his own good, and that the O family is genuinely a good choice. Even you say so, eldest brother Wani says, and it seems there is no escaping it. Then he spreads his hands and accepts his fate. Since the divine farmer's 100 herbs came to me, I have added the medical books and herbal texts Wani collects to my daily work with the 5 elements creation art. I keep researching the properties of the herbs themselves, and my medicine improves by leaps. My eldest goes into the Broken Tooth Mountains now and then to get the feel of the frostbow, though only for an hour or two at a time. Yang Yonghua is a sensible woman and holds no resentment about her husband being unable to sit with her constantly, and instead helps Baek Jung run the affairs of the household. Her arrangements are appropriate, which earns her deep praise from my wife and real affection from a great many maids and servants. She understands the position we are in. With her father gone from the county, the Seo family stands isolated and has only itself to set against the various aristocratic houses of Changgang County. Since her husband is the eldest son and the next head of this family, everything he does must put the family first. 6 days later, a carriage comes out of the county town and turns into Dongseo village and stops at our main gate with 4 mounted guards carrying sabers on either side of it. The driver is a servant who jumps down and fetches a folding step from the back and sets it up. A noble lady and a pretty girl with her hair tied back step out of the carriage, each with a maid. Jo Myung has been waiting at the gate a long while and steps forward and asks whether these are the madam and the young miss of the O family. Yes, the maid answers. Madam O, please follow me, he says. My mistress has been waiting for you a long time. Thank you for your trouble, Steward Ju, she says, having visited twice before and knowing him on sight. You are too kind, madam, he says, and asks the ladies to go ahead of him. Everyone except Madam O and the young miss and their maids waits outside the residence. The girl looks around her as she walks with open curiosity about the place. Yosan, her mother says, do not look about so much, it is unseemly. She pulls her gaze back at once and says, yes, mother. Madam O is the first wife, so the children of the concubines call her mother as well, and call their own mothers little mother. They cross the front courtyard and head for the central hall, while the maids and servants there watch them sidelong. So that is the young miss of the O family, one of them says, and she has a bold and spirited air, completely unlike the eldest young madam. Do you think this young Miss O could become our second young madam? Says another. Discussing the young master's business like this, says a third. Do you all want to be punished? At that they all get diligently back to work. The people of this house are kind and its rules are strict, and the servants respect us and are wary of us in equal measure. Sister, oh, my wife says, standing up to greet her with her face full of smiles, and then glancing at the girl, I have been looking forward to your visit. I want to visit more often, Madam O says, but unfortunately the inner household of the O family is mine to run and I can rarely find the time. The two of them look at each other and smile. Please sit and let us talk, my wife says. Once the three of them are seated, the maids stand behind their own mistresses. 3 of ours bring in pastries and tea and set them on the side tables and back away a distance before turning to leave. My wife and Madam O talk about household matters. Not long after, Wani comes into the hall, bows to his mother first and cups his hands and greets her. This is Madam O and her daughter, my wife says. He turns and cups his hands to them as well and greets the madam and the young miss. While he is speaking, he is taking the measure of both, particularly the girl he is here to meet. Her hair is tied back with a red silk ribbon, and she wears something close to a narrow-sleeved riding robe, the indigo cloth making her skin look like snow. Her almond eyes are bright as stars, and there is a bold spirit sitting in her brows. She is a striking sight. She does not have Yang Yonghua's peerless beauty, but that spirited air carries a charm entirely its own. The second young master of the Seo family has a name in Chonggang County no smaller than the eldest's. Madam O says. Even her husband praises him often, and says a house with a son like that could flourish for decades on that alone. My wife beams with a trace of pride showing, and says Sister O overpraises him, and that everyone knows the children she has raised are all exceptionally talented. After a few more rounds of that, my wife invites Madame O to take a walk and talk privately, which leaves Wani to show Oyo-san around. He simply accompanies her in silence. In business, he is decisive and shrewd and easy with anyone, and in matters of the heart, he is a complete novice. Then she stops and turns to look at him. He stops as well, having been watching the ground, and lifts his head to meet her eyes. Is the second young master of the Seo family not going to say something? She asks. He says nothing at all. She goes on to say that he is called smooth-tongued and a business genius, and that he can talk and laugh in front of family heads and never come off worse. So why are you playing the mute now? Since you do not want to talk, let us spar instead. Fine, he says, and that is the whole of it. They find a courtyard and begin. She is full of fighting spirit and moves first, her black hair flying as she steps in. He counters everything she throws. After a dozen or so exchanges, he has her measure, and she genuinely carries the power of a third-rate martial artist. For a girl not of the main line to reach third-rate at 16 must have taken an enormous amount of work. No need to hold back, she says. Her temper is as hot as the rest of her, and she spreads her arms and kicks hard at his chest, fast and accurate and merciless. He is quick-eyed and quick-handed and catches the leg in both hands to stop it. Their eyes meet. The two of them freeze exactly like that. Finding she cannot pull free, she drives from the waist and sweeps her other leg at his head, and he reacts and throws himself back and barely gets clear of it. Young Miss O, he says, I apologize for the offense just now. In a spar, there is no distinction between men and women, she says. He is surprised by that too, not having expected a woman out of a prestigious house to carry that kind of temperament, and something like admiration comes into his eyes. Since young Miss O is so straightforward, he says, I will go with you to the end. She is a woman all the same. After a while longer, his hand touches her chest by accident, and it goes through him like a shock, and he pulls the hand back and stops and apologizes. Forget it, she says. It was not intentional, and I overestimated myself. Her face colors slightly and her heart is going like a startled deer, and she has herself back in order soon enough. Young Miss O's talent is outstanding, and I am the lesser of us, he says. He tells her that with the full backing of the O family behind her, she would probably have passed his own cultivation by now. Do you really think so? She says, and then sighs softly and says that unfortunately in this world women are never valued in the end. My father does not say that, Wani tells her, smiling. He says often that in a home, men and women are equal and each holds up half the sky. Family head CEO really is different, she says, and her eyes are bright with it. My father is naturally the most formidable of men, he says. All of us were taught by what he said and what he did from the time we were small, and that is why we are what we are today. Without noticing it, he has slipped from the formal word for father into the one he uses at home, which he only ever uses with people he is close to. Oh, she says, and what were you like when you were little? Me, he says, and smiles with the memory coming over his face, and he does not refuse and simply tells her a few things out of his childhood. She is genuinely shocked to hear the CEO family was once that poor living off an acre and a half of rice field, and it fills her with admiration. Then she hesitates a moment and makes up her mind, and looks at him and asks the second young master of the CEO family what he thinks of her. Bold and spirited, he says, a woman who does not yield to men. Then would you be willing to marry me, she says. He goes rigid where he stands and cannot get a word out. Young Miss O, he says at last, somewhat haltingly, we have only just met for the first time, and surely it would be. Would be what, she says. Your CEO family and my O family are of equal standing, she says. Now that we have met, I find your appearance pleasing. Your martial power exceeds mine, and the atmosphere of the CEO family is something I have wanted for a long time. I am willing to marry you, so do you not wish to marry me? Or is it that I do not catch the eye of the second young master and he finds me distasteful? Of course not, he says, waving both hands, with the look of a man entirely out of his depth. Young Miss O is straightforward and unlike any woman he has ever met, and it is admirable. Then is that not enough? She says. But we have no feelings for each other, he says. Feelings, she says, and covers her mouth and laughs, and says that so the second young master longs for the mutual love and the perfect match out of the storybooks. Something like that, he says. My eldest brother and my sister-in-law are like that. There are such cases in this world, but they are few and far between, she tells him. When great families marry, most of them look at background and character, and at what the match brings both houses. If it works, then marry, she says. As for feelings, we can come to know each other slowly afterward, and if we truly cannot get along, we simply do not interfere with one another. She would certainly not stand in the way of his taking concubines or anything of the kind. Then she smiles faintly and adds that he is a business prodigy praised by the head of every great family, so surely he can calculate what an alliance between the two houses is worth. He turns it over and over. Something about it feels wrong, and at the same time it seems perfectly sound. The CEO family does not fear the O family, but as the current first house of Chonggang County with a man of theirs sitting as county magistrate, their foundation is still significantly the stronger. If they took the lead and genuinely brought the other 4 great families together against us, the road ahead would be extremely hard. A marriage alliance would ease things and buy the Seo family several years or better than a decade of development, at the price of a few concessions. He believes that by then this house could replace theirs as the first family in the county. After some hesitation, he sighs and tells her she has convinced him. "I will tell my mother I am willing to marry you," he says. "As for feelings, I suppose we really will have to grow them slowly. Both my eldest and my second son put the Seo family first, but where feeling is concerned, my eldest is persistent and loyal. Wani has spent years among great families and wealthy merchants and has grown used to weighing gains and losses in everything. Even hoping for what his brother has, he cannot help but weigh the situation. Then I look forward to a pleasant cooperation," she says. "Yes," he says, "a pleasant cooperation." He does not know whether to laugh or cry about it, and he admires her all the same, since perhaps only somebody with her temperament would dare be that direct. What ordinary young lady of a noble house would speak so freely and so bluntly? Afterward, he tells me about it. I am slightly taken aback myself, and then I smile and tell him a woman like that is rare in this world, and he is a lucky brat. "The match your mother chose is a very good one," I say, "and she is well suited to entering this family. She wants to follow the martial Tao, and the Seo family can assist her with everything it has. As for feelings, love grows over time, and it was the same for your mother and me, and if I had been picky back then, there would be none of you rascals at all. You need not worry about the wedding arrangements, since your mother will handle all of it. And only remember to treat her well once she has joined this house." "Yes, father," he says. Late that night, I praise my wife as well and tell her she found a good match. "Having been with you this long," she says, "I naturally know a thing or two about the kind of woman you appreciate. It is not me getting married," I say, shaking my head and laughing, "so why pick somebody I like?" "Because you are the head of this family," she says. "In the children's hearts, your standing is far above mine, and if you were not satisfied, they would give her up, even if they liked her." I think about that and find it is true enough. "You understand me, wife," I tell her. "You worked hard hosting the O family today, and I intend to reward you properly." "You rascal," she says. When Yang Yan and the others hear the news, they all congratulate their brother. The O family discusses the match for a long while and decides that trading a concubine's daughter they never valued for a set of benefits from the Seo family is a very good deal. They agree. Whether they move against us later is a thing they can take one step at a time. A marriage tie is a small matter to a house a century old and can be cut whenever they choose. In the orchid courtyard of the O residence, the courtyard of the family head's second wife, there O Yosun has grown up since she was small. A brightly dressed lady comes in and finds her practicing her boxing. "Shining child," she says. "Good news." "Little mother," the girl says, and stops and wipes the sweat off her forehead and cups her hands in greeting. "Your father has agreed to the alliance with the Seo family," her mother says. "The second young master's character and appearance are among the best in Chonggang County, and you will be marrying it as the primary wife. We can finally live well." Then she lowers her head and takes out a handkerchief and wipes the corners of her eyes. Oh Yosan is her daughter, born of a concubine and unconventional in her love of martial arts, and never favored by her father, so finding a husband like this is a blessing out of heaven. Her mother says she must go to Unam Temple tomorrow and fulfill a vow, and that the girl will come with her. "I understand, little mother," the girl says, and a rush of gladness goes through her. Then she asks curiously whether her mother knows why her father agreed, and whether it was because of something the Seo family promised. "I am not sure," her mother says, "and that is a matter for the Seo family and your father, and what has it to do with you? Do not ask so many questions and simply stay home and wait to be married." "Is the date set?" she asks. "It is far too early," her mother says. "The 3 letters and the 6 rites have not even happened yet. Why, are you in a hurry to marry?" Then she smiles and asks whether the girl saw the second young master when she went there with the first madam, and how he was, and whether he is as the rumors have him. "His appearance is not exceptionally handsome," the girl says. "He is clean-cut and upright and modest and polite, and although he is called a business prodigy and is busy with trade, he has not let his martial training go. His strength is above mine." "You girl," her mother says. "It seems you really have taken a liking to that Seo boy. That is good, and my heart is finally at ease." Then her mother remembers something and adds that the family has a girl of about 10 who would be a perfect match for her brother, that once the girl has married over, she can try to make the match. If he could marry the Seo family's legitimate daughter, she says, he would certainly gain face in front of their father. Oh Yosan smiles faintly and gives a casual answer to that and nothing more. A month goes by in a blink, and the Seo family holds the 1-month celebration for its eldest legitimate grandson, with guests invited widely. Of the O and the Bang and the Wang and the Ha and the Cho, only the O family comes. A great many families and wealthy merchants are astonished to see the wife of the head of the O family arrive with several of her people. How strange, they say. The O family was at odds with the CO family a moment ago, so why would they come today to celebrate their eldest legitimate grandson? A number of houses are entirely confused by it. When the eating and drinking are nearly through, I stand up and thank everyone for gracing my grandson's celebration with their presence, and then say I have a second happy thing to announce. My son Myungwon will be betrothed to the daughter of the head of the O family in 6 months, I tell them. As for the wedding, I discussed it with the head of the O family, and since both of them are still young, we have settled on the 10th month of next year. Congratulations, family head CO, somebody says, laughing. Your house truly has one happy event after another. Indeed, says another. And nobody expected you to become in-laws with the O family this quietly. The family heads raised their glasses one after another to offer their congratulations. It is all thanks to the head of the O family giving me face. I say, otherwise how could my son have asked for the hand of his beloved daughter? There is nothing in that for anyone to catch at, and it hands the O family a great deal of face besides. Family head CO is too kind, their head says. It is my daughter who is marrying up. Come, brother O, I say. Today the two of us drink to our heart's content. The news is through the whole of Cheonggang County the next day. The Bang and the Wang and the Ha and the Cho all call on the O family together and leave 2 hours later, and what was said in that room nobody knows. Cheonggang County stays calm and quiet all the same. The genealogy gives me Seo Deokjo as the third generation of the Seo family, aged 1, with an incomplete 5-element spiritual root, and no aptitude for cultivating, no talent, no realm. What it does give him is a bloodline, an imitation fire virtue bloodline of the 9th grade. The note attached says that an imitation fire virtue bloodline lets a man cultivate martial arts at half the effort for double the result. Raises the power of fire-natured moves or spells by 10 or 20%. The next day I call my eldest son in and tell him what his son carries. Fire virtue bloodline, he says. It surprised me as well, I tell him. I had expected the boy to inherit his father's strength or his father's eyes, and he has inherited neither and turned up a fire virtue bloodline instead. If an imitation of it is already 9th grade, I find myself wondering what grade a true fire virtue bloodline would be. While I am still turning that over, my son lowers his head and asks whether I think it could be the Seo family bloodline. I look up and smile faintly. A bloodline is something passed down the generations, I tell him. And if the Seo family truly held one, we would not have been as mediocre as we were. Martial experts would have been coming out of this house in droves, long ago. Then it must be from the Yang family, he says. The Yang family has come through centuries of rises and falls, with the Grand Master appearing in nearly every generation. I say, so it is not impossible. Then I will go back and ask Yonghwa, he says, and hurries off, and I go back to the innate 5 elements creation art. Seeing him return so fast, Yonghwa looks up in surprise and asks whether his father did not want to see him, and why he is back so quickly. We finish talking, he says, and walks over to look at Deokjo in the crib, and seeing the boy open his eyes, he makes foolish noises at him. Husband, she says, he is looking at you. His eyes are like mine, my son says, and his nose is like yours, and his features overall are like yours. He will certainly be a handsome young master, and he adds that the Yang family bloodline really is extraordinary. Husband, you are joking, she says. Then he asks his wife whether, since the Yang family has produced grandmasters in every generation, their bloodline is something special. She looks at him in confusion, and asks why he has suddenly brought up the Yang family bloodline. I am only curious about the prominent families of the county city, he says. I see, she says, and smiles, and tells him she has actually heard her brother mention this. He once said that if his own bloodline were purer, he might perhaps be like certain outstanding members of the clan and step into the innate realm before 20. Is a bloodline truly that miraculous? My son says, surprised. Privately, he is wondering whether the rest of the Yang family carry a true fire virtue bloodline or the imitation his father named. No, he decides. Most of them are probably not even the equal of little Deokjo. Father said this imitation is a 9th grade bloodline, and if every Yang descendant held a 9th grade bloodline, then every one of them would be reaching innate or even grandmaster. Seeing him deep in thought, Yang Yonghwa says she is not too sure either. She offers to write to her father with the news about Deokjo, and to ask them to find a way to check whether the boy carries the special Yang family bloodline. He agrees to it. She adds that since Deokjo is her husband's child, she rather feels the Seo family bloodline should be the stronger of the two. Perhaps, he says, and smiles faintly and leaves it there. He knows the secret of the boy's bloodline, and cannot explain how he knows, so he does not try to explain anything at all. 3 days later, at the Yang residence in Yuho County, Yang Sichong takes a letter from a servant and smiles the moment he sees the signature. Husband, why are you happy? His wife asks. A few months ago he married Moon Jung, the legitimate daughter of the Moon family, and she is pregnant now. My younger sister has sent a letter, he says. Sister Younghwa, she says. It is a pity we did not get to see her at our wedding, and I hear she has a beauty that shames the moon and closes the flowers. He only smiles and says nothing further. I also hear that Sister Younghwa was originally supposed to marry my second brother, she says. Why did she marry into a family from a small place? At that, the gladness goes partly out of his face. Theirs was an arranged marriage without much deep feeling in it to begin with, and she brings her own family up constantly, which he finds himself recoiling from. If she were not carrying a child, he might have scolded her outright. Your Mun family was simply too late, he says. Long before the alliance between our two houses, my sister was already promised, and the preliminary procedures were complete with nothing left but the date and the ceremony. My Yang family values its reputation, he says, and it was not as though she had nobody to marry, so calling the engagement off was impossible. She smiles faintly and strokes her belly, and tells her husband not to overthink it, that she was only slightly curious and asked in passing. He nods faintly and tells her that her health is weak and she should go and rest, and that he is going to see his mother. He takes the letter to Madame Yang's rooms. She is delighted at the sight of it, and cannot keep the tears out of the corners of her eyes. After wiping them away, she opens it and begins to read, smiling as she says that his sister has given birth to a son named Seo Deokcho. Is that the same character as father's name, he asks. Yes, she says. What else does my sister say? She says she's living very comfortably in the Seo family, his mother tells him, that she and her husband are in harmony, and she asks how we all are, and misses us very much. I do miss my sister, he says, and the nostalgia comes over his face. Yang Zhou has only the one son and the one daughter, and the two of them were close from the time they were small. Then he sees his mother's expression shift and asks what is wrong, and whether some problem has arisen in the Seo family. No, she says. Younghwa is asking whether there is a way to test your nephew's bloodline. Test the bloodline, he says, surprised, and then adds that it makes sense, since Deokcho carries half the young bloodline and may well hold the special one. It is not as though their in-laws have never produced martial geniuses carrying it. His mother thinks a moment and says to wait until his father is home tonight and ask his opinion first. I understand, mother, he says. That night, Yang Zhou reads the letter, and the name Seo Deokcho puts him in smiles. And then the request about the bloodline makes him sit and think a while. Younghwa is far away in Chonggang County and we cannot look after her, he says. Now that she has asked, as her father I must naturally see it done. I will go to the family head tomorrow, and I imagine that with my standing, he will lend me a bloodline stone. If Deokcho's bloodline is pure, the boy might be able to apply to cultivate the legacy martial arts of the Yang family. Then he turns to his son and tells him that once the stone is in hand, he is to make the trip to Chonggang County. Yes, father, he says. The next day, Yang Zhou borrows the stone. Yang Sicheng settles his wife in and rides out early on the third morning, and 2 days later he reaches Dongseo village. The guards at the gate see a man riding up and step forward and demand to know who goes there, saying this is the private residence of the Seo family, and there is no trespassing. That is young Master Yang, another guard says, having seen him many times. He hurries over smiling and asks him not to take offense, since the first man was hired recently and has not met him. Yang Sicheng nods and dismounts, and a servant leads him to the Namsan courtyard where my eldest son lives. He calls out to his sister and his brother-in-law as he arrives. He finds the two of them walking together with Yang Younghwa, carrying the infant wrapped in silk, both of them smiling and playing with the baby. The sight of it puts him completely at ease. She calls out to her brother, and the tears come up in her eyes at once. My eldest cups his hands as the man reaches them and greets his brother-in-law. Come, let me see my nephew, Yang Sicheng says, and takes the child out of his sister's arms and teases him without stopping. Deokcho stares up at him with dark round eyes. Call me uncle, he says. Quick, call me uncle, and then laughs and says the boy neither cries nor fusses and is a bold one. He hands him back and says the child shares a character with his grandfather's name and the old man will be delighted. Deokcho, he says. Is there a particular meaning to it? A gentleman values virtue and his character shines brightly, Yang Younghwa says. My husband chose it. He nods and walks along with them and tells them he has brought a bloodline stone to test for the Yang family bloodline. Father's intention is that if the boy's bloodline is pure, he may be able to apply to the family to be taught Yang martial arts. The Seo family does not lack martial arts, my eldest says. How can they compare with the Yang families? Yang Sicheng says. Brother-in-law does not realize how much a special bloodline combined with legacy martial arts raises a man's combat power. Of course, whether it will work at all is uncertain, so let us test the bloodline first and discuss the rest afterward. My son nods slightly. They go to his study and the test begins, and it too requires a drop of blood. The needle goes in and Deokcho starts wailing immediately, and his mother hurries over to comfort him. The bloodline stone, about the size of a pigeon's egg, lights up at once with a pure red light. Joy comes over Yang Sicheng's face. He has indeed inherited the Yang family martial Dao bloodline, he says, and it is very pure, far past my own. With that bloodline, even relying on nothing but his own cultivation, he will certainly become an innate martial artist. If he is nurtured with everything the family has, Grandmaster is no problem, and there is even a 3 in 10 chance of Grandmaster perfection. If our Yang family can produce a prodigy like this, Father will not be able to stop smiling. Little Deokjo carries the Yang bloodline as well, my eldest says, so of course he counts as a member of the Yang family. Exactly so, Yang Sichang says, laughing, and admits he was narrow-minded about it. Yang Yonghua looks over and smiles and says it was the right decision to have her brother make the trip, though what she hopes for more is that the boy inherits his father's talent. Brother-in-law's talent is hardly poor either, Yang Sichang says, laughing, and says he will ride back to the commandery city this afternoon and tell their father the good news. So soon, my son says. You rushed all this way for the boy's sake, and the Seo family has not even hosted you properly. Just give me a meal with wine at noon, Yang Sichang says. I have been missing the wine out of your Cheongyeom workshop badly. Then he claps my eldest on the shoulder and says everything the Seo family produces is good quality and rare, even up in the commandery city, where the equivalent costs more than double. He genuinely misses their fine wine and their delicacies. By the way, he asks, does the Seo family have any intention of expanding to the commandery city? With the boy carrying that talent and with his father to put in a word, the Yang family should be able to lend a hand in helping the Seo family take root up there. My eldest knows better than to say too much, and smiles and tells him that business is all handled by his second younger brother, and that even his father rarely asks about it. From what he has seen, though, there should be no such thoughts in the next year or two, since the Seo family has not yet fully set its foundation in Chonggang County. Brother-in-law is truly humble, Yang Sichang says, laughing. Even if the Seo family is not the first house in Chonggang, it is certainly among the best. My son smiles and does not answer that directly. He says instead that since his brother-in-law likes what the family makes, the man should take some perfume home for his mother-in-law this afternoon and leave the fine wine for himself and his father-in-law. And if his wife is pregnant, he adds, she must not use the perfume, since it affects the child. Then I thank you, brother-in-law, Yang Sichang says, and proposes a spar, saying he stands at Huchon Peak now with one step left before in it. That 2 or 3 years of polishing will carry him through in one go, which is far faster than his own father managed. Yang Yonghua purses her lips slightly and says nothing more, and simply stands on the corridor of the courtyard with a maid beside her and watches the two of them go at it. When it ends, Yang Sichang is sweating through and his pupils will not stop contracting, while there is very little changed about my son at all. That was truly satisfying, he says. Indeed, my son agrees. Wait, Yang Sichang says, having caught it. Your breathing is not disordered in the slightest, he says, and asks whether the man has not broken through to innate. Then he says that as he remembers, it has been less than 2 years since my son reached Huchon Peak. He asks how hard it is to perceive the power of heaven and earth alone, and draw the chi into the body. He points out that even with a key induction pill, it takes half a year to a year or more before there is any possibility at all. His eyes are full of disbelief. Yang Yonghua walks over then, and hands him a sweat towel and says lightly that her husband entered the innate realm more than half a year ago. And because the Seo family wanted to open a martial arts hall, she says, we were targeted by the 3 major halls of Chongdang County. At the opening, he defeated the master of the Black Wind Martial Arts Hall by himself. The master of the Black Wind, Yang Sichang says, and it shakes him again. That Master Wang who is past 60. He has been an in-martial artist over a decade, and you actually beat him. Then he circles all the way around my son, and finally sighs and gives him a thumb up and says he has to admire the talent. Perhaps it is because the boy is your offspring that the Yang bloodline in him is so pure. Then he says he has been here a long while without paying his respects to my son's father, which is genuinely rude of him, and asks to be taken. All right, my son says. In the afternoon he rides back to the commandery city. The things to take are already packed though. On horseback he cannot carry much. He tells his sister and his brother-in-law to come up to the commandery city when they have the time, and says he will host them properly. Yang Yonghua came to Cheonggang County with her parents, not long after she was born, and has no memory of that city at all. She watches her brother's back until it has gone over the horizon, and then lowers her head to wipe her eyes. My son pulls her into his arms and tells her not to worry, that when the chance comes they will certainly be able to go up and visit her brother and her parents, that it will not be long. He knows his father's ambition well. Chonggang County will not be able to hold the Seo family in the end, and this house is a dragon still hidden. In a blink, it is the 5th month and there has been no rain for 3 months. The weather is exceptionally hot. The water in the rice paddies has almost dried out, and the level in the river channels has dropped so far that there is no diverting water to the fields. Commoners are wailing over withered rice, since for them that crop is the entire foundation of staying alive. The Seo family holds better than 80 acres of rice paddy, 50 acres of farmland, and 50 acres of mountain forest, so of course we are affected too. We responded in time and it stays inside a range we can manage. Over the past month, the price of vegetables and fruit and grain in Cheonggang County has climbed again and again. Some of the commoners in Dongso village, seeing that they cannot go on, simply sell their paddy and their farmland to the Seo family and take work as long-term laborers. At present, we are the only house in a position to take anybody on. The old Seo estate has been declining for years and has let a great many of its own servants and maids go, let alone hired anyone. In my study at the Munsin courtyard, both of my eldest sons are with me. Father, my eldest, says, recently the family has taken on better than 60 acres of rice paddy, 50 acres of farmland, and better than 30 acres of mountain forest. The prices are less than half what they were because of the drought, he says. But with the heavens not raining, the drought only gets worse. None of us knows when it ends, so surely we cannot keep acquiring like this. There are furrows across his brow with something like worry behind them, and Wani standing beside him looks just as grave. They are all fellow villagers, my eldest says. If we do not help them now, they may end up beggars or starve outright. Is father trying to win the hearts of the people, Wani says, dropping his eyelids slightly and then lifting his head to look at me. Winning the people's hearts is one of the reasons, I tell him, nodding and smiling. A great drought is a matter of life and death to ordinary commoners, and to wealthy households and merchants and noble families it is merely a question of how much they lose. The ones who look only at what is in front of them sell their fields, and the wise ones endure. Once the drought reaches a certain point, the great why will not sit still and will send people to resolve it. With cultivators in the world, a drought is not a real problem, and settling it is only a question of time. Our businesses, the perfume and the various wines and the medicinal herbs and the rest, all rest on land. And the deeper this accumulation runs, the deeper the foundation of this family runs. Wani thinks that over and then nods and says his father makes sense. If the pillar industries are not carried by our own foundation, and we have to buy most of it from other men, he says, is that not somebody's hand around our throat? It would badly hurt the speed at which the Seo family can develop. A great disaster is also a great opportunity, my eldest says, his eyes lighting up as it lands for him too. Whether it is people or land, the Seo family wants both, I tell them, and I put enough force behind it that neither of them will argue. The time it takes for the drought to break is uncertain, though. I say, perhaps several months and perhaps a year, so I have worked out some methods to cut our losses. Then I pick up the drafts off my desk, sheets covered in diagrams with annotations written in beside them, and tell them to look at these first. The two of them put their heads together and turn the pages, and the light in their eyes climbs, and the smiles on their faces widen as they go. Father, you are amazing, my eldest says, delighted. With these designs for water wheels and pipes, we only need to recruit a group of men to build them. We can sharply cut the losses of grain in the paddies and of fruit and vegetables in the fields and the forests. Put the labor of all the newly hired men to full use, so that none of it is wasted. This method of using black gauze to block the direct sun is very novel, he says, curious as well as pleased. But can it really take the heat off? He had expected the family's industries to take heavy losses out of this drought. If these methods of mine all work, the drought costs us 10 or 20% at the outside. With prices climbing the way they are, the Seo family may well clear several times its usual profit. Some small hand-cranked fans will probably sell well too, I say. And then remember that this family also holds a secret recipe for making ice, which paired with the fans will certainly be a hit. As for the saltpeter, we quietly mine only a small amount each summer, and keep it close enough that nobody has ever found out. Be careful to keep it secret, I tell them. I would rather not do the business at all than have anyone learn of it, since that mountain forest and the vein under it do not belong to the Seo family yet. Wani promises with a smile that he understands how serious it is. Go on then, I tell them. Get to work. Yes, father, they say, and cup their hands and leave the study with the papers. I leave shortly after to check the medicinal herbs at Biokan Pond. Better than an acre and a half of medicinal field has been cleared out there specifically for growing herbs, all of them rare varieties. Any of them at 20 years old is worth 10 or 20 ounces of silver a plant, and the most precious run to 40 or 50. Harvested whole, that field would be worth an extraordinary amount. I did not clear it and plant it to sell any of them, though, but to refine medicine and prepare medicinal cuisine. The spiritual chi is denser here than elsewhere, so the herbs come on slightly faster as well. Besides the herbs, there is a small tree growing here, barely over 5 feet tall with a trunk about as thick as an arm. Its leaves and branches a deep green. It came up from a seed out of the hard black fruit my eldest son brought back and cut open. I have been studying medicine and medicinal cuisine recipes diligently, and have worked out the properties of a great many herbs. Over several months of it, I have improved the dragon elephant sex secret martial artist recipe, making it suitable for most martial artists and raising its efficacy by 30 or 40% over the original. The effect is potent enough that it can only be taken once every 3 days. Because the secret cuisine is so precious, it currently goes only to Wani and a few others. As for the innate recipe, I am still trying to improve that one, and for now my eldest and I are using the dragon elephant sex own to assist our cultivation. A great many noble families in Chonggang County are dismissive when they hear the Seo family is being excessively charitable and taking in people and land in quantity. They mock us for a shallow foundation and a complete lack of experience with disasters. In a drought like this, they say, it is already a blessing to avoid layoffs and losses. The Seo family has done the opposite, and for a while we are the laughingstock of the county's noble houses. In Dongseo village, at the bakehouse, 3 households have gone in together on land. Baek Bu and his son Baek Hwa and the family of his daughter Baek Bang's husband rented better than 16 acres of farmland for fruit and vegetables. Because of their marriage tied to us, Wani waived the rent on their stalls in the West Market. Over the past year or two, they have done quite well and gone from an ordinary commoner household to a small wealthy one. In the first half of this year, they even pooled their money and bought the land they had been renting, and then rented another 16 acres on top of it. Who could have expected that inside 2 months, before the fruit and vegetables could be harvested, a drought would break? A great one, the like of which has not been seen in 100 years. The 2 families are gathered at Baek Bu's house to talk it through, every brow knotted and every face listless, all of them looking as though they had swallowed dirt. Father-in-law, the Jung son-in-law, says, "How do you think we should solve this?" Baek Bu sits there pulling on his pipe and says nothing. "Brother-in-law, what are you talking about?" Baek Hwa says with real displeasure in his eyes. "You agreed to this readily enough at the time, so how can you put it on my father now? We pooled our money together, so if there is a problem we carry it together. Besides, our 2 houses made a good deal of money these past 2 years, and heavy as the losses are, it is not as though we cannot survive them." Baek Bang says quickly that her brother should understand, that her husband is only anxious, and that the Jung family is large and its expenses are heavy. "Why not go and find eldest sister?" she says. "She dotes on you most, and now that she is the matriarch of the Seo family, it should not be difficult at all if she is willing to help. I hear the Seo family happens to be buying land at the moment," she adds, "so why not sell ours to them at the original price?" Second sister Baek Hwa says, scolding her at once, "Do you know what land is worth right now? Ordinary commoners can barely stay alive, so what use is land? And you want eldest sister to take it at the original price. How do you even bring yourself to say that? If you want to go, you go, because I certainly will not. Besides, eldest sister never involves herself in the Seo family's outside affairs, and you know it perfectly well. And the man who decides in that house is still our eldest brother-in-law." That displeases her too, and she argues back with her face flushed red, saying he was the one who started this. If he will not speak up, then who will? And asks whether they are simply meant to shoulder the losses. "It is a drought and there is no telling when it ends," she says, "and the longer it runs, the harder living gets. Our 2 houses are not the Seo family with businesses that size and cannot afford this." "Enough," Baek Bu says. "Stop arguing." He snorts and taps his pipe against the table hard enough to send up a shower of sparks. "I will go and talk to them, all right? I will head over there right now." Then he gets up and walks unsteadily off toward our house. The new Seo mansion no longer sits where the old small courtyard was, but in a remote spot well away from the village. It needed a great deal of land, and there was no tearing down other people's houses to get it. It takes him better than half an hour to reach the entrance, and he looks up at the place with both gratification and something deeper moving in his eyes. When he agreed to my marriage proposal all those years ago, it was because he saw that I could farm. Reckoned that if his daughter married me, she would at least never have to worry about food. Who could have thought that in a little over 10 years I would carry the Seo family to a height he could not have imagined? On the day this family established its clan, nearly every noble house and wealthy merchant in Cheonggang was standing in that courtyard. What a thing it was. "Old Master Baek is here," one of the servants says. "Are you looking for the family head or the madam?" "I am here for my daughter," he says, and walks straight in, and nobody stops him. And every maid and servant he passes greets him without daring to be careless. He was here for Deokjo's birth and for the full moon banquet, so he knows his way. "Father," my wife says, pleasantly surprised, "how did you find the time today, and have you come to see little Deokjo?" In the main hall, she is playing with the baby in her arms, with Yang Yonghwa standing beside her. Baek Bu steps forward and leans in for a look, and the child seems to see something entertaining, and babbles and reaches out both chubby arms, apparently after the pipe in the old man's hand. "You cannot play with this," Baek Bu says, chuckling, with his eyes full of affection. "Father, you are getting old," my wife says, and tells him he should smoke less. I know, he says. Then she asks whether something has happened, and whether that boy Hua has caused trouble, having sensed that something is off. Not really, he says. It is just. And there he stops, finding it hard to get out. His household lacked foresight and moved out of quick greed and took losses that now force his daughter to bail them out, which is genuinely humiliating for an honest man. Telling me about it is further beyond him than telling her. Father, she says, why be embarrassed with me? If you have difficulties, simply say so. Yang Yonghua is quick and smiles and says she thinks little Deokjo is hungry and she will take him back and feed him first. And my wife nods. Once she is gone, Baekbu says that Dolly picked a good wife. She was not chosen by me, my wife says. Dolly picked her himself. Yonghua was born into a prominent house, and the Yang family's upbringing is very good, so she was raised remarkably well. Seolhu has been a wild girl since she was small, and now spends all day at her martial arts exactly like a boy. Seolhu was taught by Seo Cheon, her father says. She will not turn out badly. Then he is silent for a moment and finally lays out his own situation and Baek bangs. Wani has not told me about this, my wife says, and this is the first time I have heard the Seo family is taking on this much land and this many people. 16 acres of farmland is not a large amount in any case. Then she smiles and says she still has personal savings and will cover this money herself. Do you have that much? Her father says. You do not need to draw on the family accounts. Buying things in Chonggang County, taking tea with the ladies of the aristocratic houses, all of it costs money, she says. So I do keep a sum on hand. Besides, Wani sends me 100 or 200 ounces every 2 or 3 months. Right now I probably have 7 or 8,000 ounces. Wani really is a filial and good child, Baekbu says, and his lips twitch slightly with the weight coming off him. Standing at a different level shows a man a different horizon. What the Baek and the Jung families are agonizing over is not worth mentioning in his daughter's eyes, and less than that in the Seo families. Wani manages all of this family's businesses, my wife says, and nobody knows how much money passes through his hands for approval in a single day. Then she gets up and goes to her vanity and tells her father to wait a moment. She takes a gilded rosewood box out of a drawer, opens it, draws out 2,000 ounces and hands it to him. He looks at it and immediately tries to give part of it back, saying there is no need for this much. Keep the rest so you and mother can live more comfortably, she says. Consider it your daughter's filial gesture. Well, he says, all right then. And there is no need to mention any of this to Seo Cheon. At that she laughs softly and asks whether he thinks her husband would look down on the Baek family over a thing like this. You are overthinking it entirely, she says. He is still the same man he always was. By the way, father, she says, do you have any plans for what comes next? Me, he says. At my age, I will be content simply enjoying my last good years. And the Baek family, she says. Little brother is the only male heir we have, so what does he do in the future? Baekbu sinks into it and stays silent a long while. Why not talk to little brother once this is settled, she says, and suggest he follow the Jin family's example and become a vassal of the Seo family. With my support, the Baek family can certainly flourish inside 10 or 20 years. If the descendants of the Baek family are trained by the Seo family, she says, perhaps strong martial artists come out of us, and perhaps an innate martial artist in time. And even when I am gone, little brother is still uncle to Dolly and Wani, so they will certainly put out a hand for him. For the next 3 generations, as long as I am here, the Baek family will have nothing to worry about. Well, he says, I will go back and ask your younger brother, since he is the one who decides. As for me, I do not have many days left to look forward to. He goes home. Once the land deed is out of the Jung son-in-law's hands, he passes the silver over, and that couple takes its leave. Father, Baekhwa says, I really cannot stand the Jung family's attitude. When they want something, they shamelessly call me brother, and the moment trouble arrives, they turn aggressive and overbearing. Then he asks whether this will affect his elder sister at all. You do not need to worry about your elder sister, Baekbu says, and then thinks a moment and passes on what she said. Merge into the Seo family, Baekhwa says quietly. Become a vassal of the Seo family. Do not look only at how the Jin family and the rest run about serving them now, his father says. They have their eyes on what is coming. A family like the Seo that can rise inside a single generation is something Chonggang County has hardly seen in hundreds of years. Without the resources and the cultivation of an aristocratic house, it is far too hard for a true genius to appear at all. But riding the wind the Seo family has under it, perhaps our Baek family also stands out and rises with it decades from now. Then he stops, having made his point. Baekhwa thinks it over seriously for a long while and finally says, all right, and that he will go to the Seo family in a few days and speak about it. If they had not run into this drought, a thing that comes once a century, he would have been unwilling in his heart. The situation as it stands has made him see clearly. Ordinary commoner families simply have no ability to cope with disasters, natural or man-made, unless a great talent is born to them as one was to the Seo family. Whether even that can be sustained, nobody knows. Set aside the whole of the Great Y, since inside Chonggang County alone, countless prominent families have risen and fallen, and every 100 years another batch of them is weeded out. Even the first house of Chonggang, the O family, has close to 200 years of heritage, and whether it continues or declines over the next century is still an open question. If the Jin family had not had their history with me, the Seo family would probably never have taken them as vassals, at all. And the same is true of his Baek family. In the eyes of prominent houses, they do not even qualify. A few days later, Baekhua comes to discuss it with my eldest son, which surprises him considerably. Where my wife's family is concerned, the Seo family will naturally lend some support, though only to a reasonable extent. Maternal uncle, my son says, I still need to consult my father on this. I will give you an answer tomorrow. How does that sound? All right, Dolly, he says, we will do as you say. Apart from practicing during the day, I go out to Biokan Pond to tend those herbs, and I only come home when the sun is down in the west. My eldest tells me about it then. Out of nowhere, why would your maternal uncle bring up becoming a vassal of this family, I ask. I made inquiries, he says. In this drought, the Baek family took significant losses, having bought 16 acres of rented farmland a few months ago, and then rented another 16. And when the great drought hit, they were helpless. Mother covered the cost for them and bought up all the land, he says. So perhaps it was Mother's suggestion. I stroke my short beard and think about it, and then look up and smile gently. Your mother's vision has widened these days, I say, and she has even started planning for her own family. Then let us fulfill your mother's wish. Yes, father, he says. 2 days later, the Baek family is merged into the Seo family as well. Baekwa's 6-year-old youngest son is sent to the Dragon Elephant Martial Arts Hall to be raised exactly like the talented youths the Seo family selects for itself. The training at the hall runs in 3 tiers. The first tier is the direct descendants of the Seo family, Myongyan among them, who currently eat the secret medicinal cuisine I developed myself. The second tier is the children of servants and guards with good talent and a real hope of reaching the innate realm, who eat the Dragon Elephant sect's secret cuisine. The third tier is the children of other families and wealthy merchants who pay tuition to enter, and they eat the ordinary cuisine the Seo family gathers. Under the drought, the major prominent families are only trying to hold their losses down. Only the Seo family keeps accumulating strength.